Hello guys, welcome to Ben 10 What Ifs. So in this video, we will see, what if Ben 10 became Multiverse Omni-King and amassed the Harem of Gwen, Kai, Julie from all dimensions. If you enjoy these kinds of stories, don't forget to show us some love by hitting the like button and subscribing to the channel. Your support means the world to us. Now, let's start the story. Chapter 1. The Fracture of Infinity. The familiar green flash illuminated the abandoned warehouse, casting eerie shadows across stacked crates and rusted machinery. Where seconds before stood a lanky teenager, now a crystalline humanoid composed of translucent diamond-like material rose to full height, faceted head turning to scan the surroundings with unblinking eyes. Diamond head. Not what I was going for, but I'll take it, Ben Tennyson muttered, his voice resonating with a strange crystalline timbre as he assessed the situation. 3 hybrid soldiers advanced through the shadows, their pale exoskeletons gleaming under the moonlight streaming through broken windows. Purple energy weapons hummed to life in their clawed hands as they spotted their target. Tennyson, the lead hybrid, snarled, voice dripping with contempt. Your interference ends tonight. Ben rolled his shoulders, diamond-like protrusions shifting with the movement. 5 years of wielding the Omnitrix had taught him patience and strategy. At 21, he was no longer the impulsive kid who transformed for the thrill. Each alien form was now a calculated choice. Each battle approached with hard-earned wisdom. You guys really don't learn, do you? Ben planted his feet in a fighting stance. How many times do we have to do this dance before you realize Earth is off limits? The hybrid commander raised a 3-fingered hand. This time, we come with purpose beyond conquest. We seek the quantum causality engine. Our sensors detected its energy signature in this sector. Ben's crystalline brow furrowed. The what now? Look, whatever cosmic MacGuffin you're after, you're not getting it. House rules. The hybrid fired without further discussion. Purple energy beams streaking toward Ben. He raised his arms, generating a crystalline shield that refracted the blasts in kaleidoscopic patterns across the warehouse. With practiced precision, he transformed his right arm into a blade and charged forward. The first hybrid barely had time to adjust its aim before Ben was upon it, severing its weapon with a precise strike before. Delivering a crystalline uppercut that sent the alien sprawling. The second and third attacked simultaneously from opposite directions, forcing Ben to dive and roll between stacked crates. Fine, let's make this interesting. Ben concentrated, causing diamond shards to erupt from the floor beneath the hybrid soldiers, temporarily immobilizing them. As they struggled to free themselves, he met his hands into twin blades and advanced. The hybrid commander fired desperately, a shot grazing Ben's shoulder and chipping away fragments that regenerated almost instantly. With 3 fluid movements, Ben disabled the remaining weapons and had the aliens pinned against the wall, diamond spikes emerging from his knuckles to hover inches from their throats. Now, let's try civilized conversation, Ben said, voice deceptively calm. What exactly is this quantum causality engine, and why should I care? The commander's multifaceted eyes narrowed. It is not of your concern, human. Our scientists detected temporal anomalies. The air behind them crackled with blue electricity, interrupting the hybrid's explanation. Ben turned, maintaining his hold on the aliens as a familiar blue portal spiraled into existence. A tall figure in a Victorian coat stepped through, twirling a pocket watch on a chain. Ah, Benjamin, punctual as always. Though in my case, that's something of a professional requirement. Professor Paradox smiled, though the expression didn't reach his eyes. I see you've met our dimensional visitors. Ben's crystalline eyes narrowed. Paradox, should have known you'd show up when time travel gets mentioned. These guys were just about to tell me about something called a quantum causality engine. Indeed. Paradox approached, studying the hybrid with scholarly interest. And they are correct about its presence. However, they neglect to mention these aren't the hybrid from your universe. Observe the purple bioluminescent patterns along their carapace. Your universe's hybrid exhibit blue markings after their genetic restoration. The warehouse fell silent save for the distant dripping of water from a leaking pipe. Ben studied the aliens more carefully, noting the difference Paradox mentioned. Different universe. You're saying the multiverse theory is real? Ben asked, though the question felt redundant given Paradox's presence. Oh, more than theory, my boy. Necessity, really, given the infinite permutations of decision-making across sentient species. Paradox's expression grew serious. The real question is why these particular hybrid have crossed dimensional boundaries, a feat requiring technology far beyond their typical capabilities. The hybrid commander hissed. The barriers between realities grow thin, Time Walker. The engine W, as our only hope to stabilize our dimension before the fracture consumes it. The fracture? Ben asked. Paradox's ancient eyes clouded with concern. A most troubling development. Perhaps it's best if I show you. He turned to Ben. These hybrid pose no further threat. Their dimension is already lost. They're simply the desperate survivors of a cosmic catastrophe spreading across the multiverse. Ben hesitated, then retracted his diamond blades, stepping back from the aliens. Fine, but they stay here until we figure this out. He directed his attention to the hybrid. Try anything, and I'll be back before you can blink. The commander simply sagged against the wall, the fight visibly leaving its towering frame. It matters not. We are already ghosts. With a tap to the Omnitrix symbol on his chest, Ben transformed back to human form in a flash of green light. At 21, he carried himself with the confidence of someone who had saved the universe multiple times. His brown high R was cut short on the sides but longer on top, and a thin scar ran along his jawline, a souvenir from Akoro's gladiatorial arena 2 years prior. The Omnitrix had evolved with him, sleeker now and NDED more thoroughly to his genetic structure. Lead the way, Professor, Ben said, rolling down the sleeve of his black jacket to cover the Omnitrix, a habit formed from years of maintaining some semblance of a normal life. Paradox nodded and reopened the portal. I should warn you, Benjamin. What you're about to see may challenge everything you understand about your role as wielder of the Omnitrix. Ben stepped toward the swirling blue vortex, the electricity raising the hair on his arms. After everything I've seen, I doubt that. Despite his confident words, an unfamiliar sensation settled in his stomach, not fear, exactly, but the distinct feeling that life was about to fundamentally change. As they stepped through the portal, reality distorted around them. Unlike Paradox's usual instantaneous transportation, this journey stretched on, surrounding them with fragmentary glimpses into other dimensions, a world where the sky burned emerald, another where crystalline beings communicated through light patterns. A barren landscape where massive temporal predators stalked between moments. What's happening? Ben asked, his voice echoing strangely as they traveled. Your portals are usually more direct. We're traversing the interstitial boundary, the membrane between universes. Paradox's form seemed to waver, becoming momentarily transparent before solidifying again. Normally, I would shield you from experiencing the passage, but I believe context is important for what comes next. The journey ended abruptly as they emerged onto what appeared to be an observation platform suspended in space. Below them stretched a visualization of countless universes, glowing spheres arranged in a vast cosmic web, pulsing with internal light and connected by delicate filaments of energy. Welcome to the Nexus Observatory, Paradox announced, gesturing around them. One of the few structures that exist outside conventional dimensions. The Contempolia built it eons ago to monitor the multiverse. Ben approached the railing, mesmerized by the cosmic display. It's beautiful, indeed. Each sphere represents a complete universe, infinite in its own internal space, yet observable as a discrete entity from our current perspective. Paradox's expression darkened as he directed Ben's attention to a disturbing pattern emerging across the multiverse map. And now, observe the fracture. Throughout the web of universes, several spheres had darkened, their internal light extinguished. More troubling were the black, lightning-like cracks spreading outward from these dead universes, creeping along the connecting filaments toward healthy dimensions. The fracture began 3 months ago, or perhaps millions of years in the past, depending on one's perspective on temporal relativity, Paradox explained. A fundamental breakdown in the structure of reality itself. Entire universes are collapsing, and the damage is spreading exponentially. Ben's eyes widened as he processed the scale of the threat. What's causing it? And why show me? I mean, this seems way beyond what the Omnitrix was designed to handle. Paradox turned to face Ben directly. That's where you're mistaken. AZM. Oof's vision for the Omnitrix was always greater than you've been led to believe. It was never merely a tool for understanding alien species or even protecting a single universe. He produced his pocket watch, which transformed into a holographic projector displaying Azimuth's familiar Galvan form. The Omnitrix's true purpose, the recording of Azimuth stated, is to serve as an anchor point for universal genetic stability. While its more obvious function allows the user to transform into different species, its deeper programming continuously samples, analyzes, and preserves the genetic codes of all sentient life. Should catastrophic collapse occur, the Omnitrix contains the necessary foundations to restore biodiversity across dimensional boundaries. The hologram flickered off, leaving Ben staring at his wrist with new perspective. Azimuth suspected something like the fracture might eventually occur, Paradox continued. He built contingencies into the Omnitrix, capabilities that would only activate under specific conditions. Conditions that have now been met. Ben ran a hand through his hair, struggling to process the implications. So what am I supposed to do? Wave my hand and magically repair the multiverse? Not precisely. Paradox gestured to a door materializing in the center of the platform. The Contempolia left more than an observatory. They created tools to maintain multiversal integrity, tools that only respond to certain genetic patterns. Your pattern, specifically. Wait, how could ancient aliens build something keyed to my DNA? I wasn't even born yet. Time is rarely linear in these matters. Benjamin. Paradox smiled enigmatically. The Contempolia existed simultaneously throughout all points in time. They saw you as you are now, as you were, and as you will become. The door swung open silently, revealing a chamber bathed in soft green light reminiscent of the Omnitrix's glow. This is the Crucible of Universes, Paradox explained as they entered. The control center for multiversal maintenance. The chamber was dominated by a central platform surrounded by floating holographic displays showing various universes in real time. At the center stood a pedestal with a hand-shaped depression that pulsed with the same energy as the Omnitrix. I'm guessing that's for me? Ben asked, approaching cautiously. Indeed, the Crucible will interface with your Omnitrix, granting you access to capabilities previously locked. You'll be able to perceive the damage across dimensions and, potentially, repair it. Paradox's expression grew somber. But I must warn you, Benjamin, this will change you. The power and responsibility will be unlike anything you've experienced. Ben stared at the pedestal, conflict evident in his expression. Do I have a choice? There are always choices, but the consequences of inaction would be the eventual collapse of all reality, including your home dimension. Ben took a deep breath, squaring his shoulders. Well, when you put it that way. He stepped onto the platform, positioning his Omnitrix bearing wrist above the depression. Any last-minute advice? Paradox stepped back. Trust yourself, Benjamin, and remember that while power can corrupt, compassion can guide. You've always had both in abundance. With a nod, Ben lowered his hand into the depression. Instantly, green energy surged up his arm, enveloping the Omnitrix. The device responded, its faceplate opening to reveal the core, which pulsed in rhythm with the Crucible's energy. Pain lanced through Ben's consciousness as information flooded his mind. Countless universes, billions of species. Infinite variations of reality compressing into understandable patterns. He cried out, nearly pulling away, but forced himself to remain in place. It's too much, he gasped, as the Omnitrix began to transform, green energy reconstructing its physical form. The device expanded, sleek black and green lines extending up his forearm in a lattice pattern, integrating more thoroughly with his biological systems. Endure, Benjamin, Paradox called, his voice seeming distant through the roar of energy. Your mind is adapting to perceive the multiverse as a comprehensible whole. The pain peaked, then suddenly subsided as Ben's consciousness expanded. He could see them, all the dimensions, all the connections, all the fractures spreading like disease through the cosmic web. More surprisingly, he could see versions of himself throughout the multiverse. Ben Tennysons who had made different choices, faced different challenges, become different heroes, or in some cases, villains. The energy receded, leaving Ben standing upright on the platform, breathing heavily. The Omnitrix had transformed into what appeared to be a more advanced exoskeletal interface covering his forearm from wrist to elbow, with the familiar hourglass symbol now projecting slightly above the surface rather than embedded within it. What happened? Ben examined the new configuration with wonder. The Crucible has recognized you as the Omni-Guardian, Paradox explained, approaching cautiously. Your Omnitrix has evolved into the Omnitrix Infinitum, capable of drawing upon the genetic templates of beings across all dimensions. Ben flexed his fingers, feeling somehow both weightless and immensely powerful. I can see everything, Paradox. Every universe, every timeline. His eyes widened. And I can see where the fracture began. That's not possible, Paradox replied, genuine surprise in his voice. Even the Chronosapiens couldn't trace the origin point. It started in dimension Epsilon 417. Ben stated with absolute certainty, his eyes glowing faintly green. Something tore a hole between realities, creating a cascading failure. He turned to one of the holographic displays, which instantly responded to his thoughts, zooming in on a particular universe. It's still happening. The display showed a massive machine built around what appeared to be a miniature black hole. Reality itself warping around it as energy beams penetrated the fabric of space-time. The quantum causality engine, Paradox breathed. But who would build such a device knowing its consequences? The image zoomed further, revealing a figure overseeing the machine's operation, a figure wearing a familiar mask with tubes connecting to its shoulders. Egregor, Ben growled, Recon. Eyeing the Osmosian criminal he'd defeated years ago. But how? He's been imprisoned in the null void. Not in that dimension, Paradox explained. You're seeing an alternate timeline where Egregor succeeded in his plans, absorbed different powers, and evidently discovered dimensional travel technology. Ben's expression hardened with determination. Then we need to stop him. Now, we cannot simply travel there, Benjamin. That universe exists in a state of temporal flux due to the engine's effects. Even I cannot safely navigate to it. Maybe you can't. Ben raised his transformed Omnitrix, the holographic interface springing to life with new alien silhouettes never before available to him. But I think I can. He selected an unfamiliar form, and the green transformation energy enveloped him more completely than ever before. When it receded, Ben had transformed into a being composed of swirling temporal energy, humanoid but with features that seemed to shift between multiple possibilities simultaneously. Chronospan, he announced, his voice echoing as if speaking from multiple moments in time concurrently. A temporal anomaly from universe Gamma-225. Knowledge of the aliens CA. Abilities flowed into his consciousness automatically, as if he'd used the form 100 times. Paradox stepped back, genuine awe on his features. The Omnitrix Infinitum is already exceeding my expectations. You've access to species even I cannot fully perceive across the timeline. I need to gather allies, Ben stated, the plan forming in his mind with perfect clarity. This isn't something I can face alone. Even with these new powers. Who did you have in mind? Ben's Chronospan raised a hand, creating a temporal viewport that cycled through images of different individuals across dimensions. I need specialists, people I can trust who have unique skills. The viewport stopped on an image of a familiar Japanese-American girl with black hair pulled back in a ponytail, working on what appeared to be advanced alien technology integrated with Earth components. Julie Yamamoto, Ben said. But not my Julie. This version from Universe Kappa 779 became a genius-level engineer after being exposed to Galvan technology. She's developed mechamorph-inspired exosuits that allow humans to interface directly with alien tech. The viewport shifted again, showing a woman with darkly tanned skin wearing archaeological gear, examining ancient alien ruins with a familiar green and black gauntlet on her wrist. Kai Green from Universe Omega 112. In her world, I died during our first encounter with the Yenildushi. And Kai ended up receiving her own version of the Omnitrix. She's specialized in using its scanning capabilities for archaeological research, but she's also a formidable fighter. Paradox studied the images thoughtfully. Interesting choices. Individuals who share connection points with your timeline, yet whose lives took dramatically different paths. He paused. Though I must caution you, bringing individuals across dimensional boundaries could potentially accelerate the fracture spread. The temporal being that was Ben shook his head, energy patterns shifting with the movement. The Omnitrix Infinitum is already compensating for that. I can create stable transit corridors that won't damage the multiverse further. He hesitated. There's one more person I need. The viewport shifted a final time, revealing a red-haired woman in what appeared to be a high-tech library, manipulating complex energy patterns with graceful hand movements that left trails of blue light in the air around her. Gwen, Ben said softly, from Universe TAU 436. In her world, she became the Sorcerer Supreme after studying under Hex and Charmcaster, who were heroes rather than villains. Her understanding of interdimensional magic could be crucial for sealing the breaches. A formidable team, Paradox agreed. Though convincing alternate versions of people you know to join a multiversal mission may prove challenging. Ben as Chronospan nodded, the temporal energy comprising his form pulsing with determination. I know, but the stakes couldn't be higher. With a thought, he reverted to human form. Though the sensation was different, as if his human self was now just another transformation option rather than his base state. The enhanced Omnitrix Infinitum hummed with power on his forearm. How much time do we have? Ben asked. Paradox consulted his pocket watch. Difficult to say precisely. The multiverse doesn't experience time linearly. From your perspective, perhaps TW. Weeks before the fracture reaches your home dimension. From mine, he shrugged. Simultaneously an instant and an eternity. 2 weeks to assemble a team, find Egregor's dimensional fortress, disable the quantum causality engine, and repair the damage to the multiverse. Ben laughed dryly. Honestly, I've faced worse odds. Perhaps, Paradox replied, though his expression remained grave. Never with such comprehensive consequences for failure. Ben studied the holographic displays showing the spreading fracture, stealing his resolve. Then failure isn't an option. He activated the Omnitrix Infinitum, interfacing with the Crucible's systems. I need to understand exactly what we're facing before I recruit anyone. Show me everything you have on Egregor's activities in Dimension Epsilon 417. The displays shifted, presenting detailed information about the alternate Egregor's rise to power. In that universe, he had successfully absorbed the powers of 5 interdimensional beings. But instead of pursuing the power of an infant celestial sapien as in Ben's timeline, this Egregor had discovered ancient Contempolia technology that led him to develop the quantum causality engine. He's trying to absorb the power of the multiverse itself, Ben realized, studying the schematics. The engine is designed to harvest energy from collapsing realities and funnel it into Egregor. He's causing the fracture deliberately. A scheme of incomprehensible hubris, Paradox agreed. No being was meant to contain multiversal energy. Even if he succeeded in absorbing it, the power would tear him apart, after destroying countless realities in the process. Ben closed the displays with a gesture, decision made. I'm going after Julie first. Her technical expertise could help us understand the engine better. He activated the dimensional coordinates on the Omnitrix Infinitum. Can you monitor things here while I'm gone? Of course. Paradox produced his pocket watch. Though I suggest haste. The fracture accelerates with each passing moment. Ben nodded and selected Chronospan again, transforming into the temporal being. I'll be back soon. Hopefully not alone. With those words, he focused on the coordinates for Universe KAPPA 779, creating a controlled rift in space-time. Unlike Paradox's neat portals, this was a deliberate tearing of reality, a technique only possible because the Omnitrix Infinitum was simultaneously sealing the edges of the breach to prevent further damage. Ben stepped through the rift into a world both familiar and strange. The skyline of Bellwood appeared before him, but with notable differences. Floating transportation platforms moved between buildings, and the architecture incorporated unmistakably alien design elements seamlessly integrated with Earth construction techniques. He reverted to human form in an alley, adjusting his jacket to partially cover the Omnitrix Infinitum. According to the device's databanks, this universe's Ben Tennies had retired from hero work years ago after the hybrid invasion, choosing instead to pursue diplomatic relations with alien civilizations. He and Julie had dated briefly but parted ways when their career paths diverged. The Omnitrix Infinitum provided coordinates to Julie's workshop, located in what would have been the industrial district in his Bellwood. As Ben navigated the streets, he marveled at the peaceful coexistence of humans and aliens in this reality, Kinisolarans zooming along specially designated speed lanes, Pyronites operating clean energy facilities, and galvanic mechamorphs interfacing with the city's infrastructure. He arrived at a nondescript warehouse with a small sign reading, Yamamoto Advanced Tech, beside the entrance. Taking a deep breath, he approached and pressed the intercom button. Workshops closed for the day, Julie's voice, yet not quite the Julie he knew, responded through the speaker. Come back tomorrow or schedule an appointment online. I need to speak with you about interdimensional technology, Ben replied, deciding directness was the best approach. It's urgent. A long pause followed before the intercom crackled again. Who is this? Ben Tennyson. Though not the one you know. Quote. The door unlocked with a metallic click. Ben pushed it open to find himself staring down the barrel of a sophisticated energy weapon held by a woman who led Julie Yamamoto, but with significant differences. This Julie had short hair with blue highlights, a network of thin scars along her left temple that resembled circuit patterns, and eyes that studied him with calculating precision. She wore practical work clothes covered in mechanical grease and what appeared to be a partial exoskeleton frame on her right arm. You're right about not being the Ben I know, she said evenly. Weapon remaining trained on his chest. He's currently off-world at a diplomatic summit. So either you're a shapeshifter with outdated information, or... Her eyes narrowed. You're telling the truth about being from another dimension. The second one, Ben confirmed, slowly raising his hands to show the Omnitrix infinitum. I can prove it. Julie's eyes widened at the sight of the device. That's not Ben's Omnitrix model. She lowered the weapon slightly. And dimensional travel would explain the exotic particle readings I detected moments before you arrived. I need your help, Ben said, lowering his hands cautiously. The multiverse is in danger, and your expertise with alien technology could be crucial to saving it. Julie holstered her weapon but maintained a wary posture. You'll forgive me if I require more substantial evidence before agreeing to anything. Ben nodded. That's fair. He gestured to the Omnitrix infinitum. May I? At her cautious nod, he activated the device, projecting a holographic display showing the fracture spread across dimensions, including a simulation of its eventual arrival in her universe. This is happening now, he explained. A multiversal catastrophe called the fracture. It's already consumed dozens of realities and will reach yours within days. Julie approached the display, professional curiosity overcoming caution as she studied the data. These energy signatures, they're consistent with theoretical models of dimensional collapse. She looked up at Ben sharply. Who's causing this? The pattern indicates deliberate action, not natural phenomena, an alternate version of egregor. He built something called the quantum causality engine to harvest energy from collapsing dimensions. Recognition flashed across Julie's features. Egregor. I remember him from Ben's stories. She turned back to her workbench, activating several screens that displayed her own research. I've been detecting ANOMA, loose energy spikes for weeks, thought it was equipment malfunction. She pulled up a schematic that matched portions of the engine design Ben had seen in the Crucible's displays. You've been researching dimensional technology? Ben asked, surprised. Julie nodded absently, focused on the data. After Ben and I broke up, I focused on understanding the fundamental principles behind Galvan teleportation tech. It led me down some interesting research paths, including theoretical models for cross-dimensional transport. She turned to face him fully, decision made. I'll help you, not just because my universe is threatened, but because this technology is being horrifically misused. I need 15 minutes to gather my equipment. Ben felt a surge of relief. Thank you. Julie disappeared into the back of her workshop, returning shortly with a backpack and what appeared to be a collapsed exosuit. She had changed into more tactical attire, still practical but designed for mobility. So what's the plan? She asked, securing the last of her equipment. And who else are you recruiting? 2 more specialists, Ben replied, bringing up images of Kai and Gwen on the Omnitrix infinitum's display. Quote, an archaeologist with her own Omnitrix and an interdimensional sorceress. Julie studied the images with clinical interest. Dimensional variants of people you know from your reality. Interesting strategy. Familiar enough to trust. Different enough to bring unique skills. She raised an eyebrow. Though I'm guessing your relationship with them is complicated in your dimension. Ben laughed despite himself. That obvious, huh? I dated a version of you, remember? Julie's expression softened slightly. Even across dimensions, some things remain consistent. She shouldered her pack. I'm ready. Though I should warn you, my exosuit prototype is still experimental. It works brilliantly for interfacing with technology but has some stability issues under extreme conditions. Noted. Ben activated the Omnitrix Infinitum, transforming again into Chronospan. This might feel strange, he warned, his temporal voice echoing. Julie stared at his transformed state with scientific fascination. A chronokinetic species. Fascinating. The temporal manipulation potential alone could revolutionize. We can discuss the scientific implications later, Ben interrupted gently, creating another controlled dimensional rift. Right now, we have a multiverse to save. Julie nodded, composure returning. Lead the way, Tennyson. They stepped through the rift together, the first team members in a mission to save all of reality. As they emerged back in the crucible, Paradox awaited them, eyebrows raising slightly at the sight of Julie. Ms. Yamamoto of Universe Kappa-779. Your reputation precedes you, or perhaps follows you, depending on one's perspective on temporal causality. Julie studied Paradox with immediate recognition. Professor Paradox. Ben mentioned you once. Said you were cryptic but reliable. She extended a hand, which Paradox shook with genteel courtesy. A fair assessment, he acknowledged. Though I prefer to think of myself as appropriately circumspect regarding information that could damage the timeline. Ben reverted to human form, the transformation process smoother than before as he adapted to the Omnitrix Infinitum's enhanced capabilities. Has the situation changed? He asked Paradox, gesturing toward the holographic displays. I'm afraid so. The fracture has accelerated its spread by approximately 7.3% since your departure. 2 more universes have been completely consumed. Paradox manipulated the display to highlight the newest damage. At this rate, we have less time than initially calculated. Julie approached the displays, immediately analyzing the data. The consumption pattern follows a Fibonacci sequence in 4-dimensional space. If I'm reading this correctly, we have approximately 10 days before irreversible cascade failure begins. Your assessment is impressively accurate. Paradox noted with approval. I'll need to retrieve Kai next, Ben decided, studying the multiversal map. Her experience with alien artifacts could help us understand. And the Contemalia technology egregor is misusing. He input the coordinates for Universe Omega 112 into the Omnitrix Infinitum, preparing for the next recruitment mission. The device hummed with power, adapting to his intentions almost before he fully formed them. Ms. Yamamoto, perhaps you'd like to familiarize yourself with the Crucible's systems while Benjamin continues assembling the team. Paradox suggested. Your technical expertise could prove valuable in understanding its operations. Julie nodded, already moving toward the central console. These interfaces appear to use a variation of Galvan architecture, but with elements I've never encountered. Her fingers moved deftly across the holographic controls. Fascinating. Satisfied that Julie was in good hands, Ben transformed ONCE again into Chronospan and opened a new dimensional rift, this one leading to the world where Kai Green wielded her own version of the Omnitrix. Universe Omega 112 materialized around him, a world W. Here technology seemed to have developed along different lines. The landscape was dominated by massive archaeological excavations revealing the ruins of ancient alien outposts beneath Earth's surface. Ben found himself on a plateau overlooking a dig site where workers carefully extracted what appeared to be Petrosapian architecture from the ground. According to the Omnitrix Infinitum's data, this world's Ben had died protecting Kai during their first encounter with the Yenildushi. In her grief and determination to continue his legacy, she had recovered the Omnitrix from his body. Azimuth, recognizing her potential, had allowed her to keep it, and she had dedicated her life to using its capabilities to uncover Earth's secret history of alien visitation. Ben transformed back to human form and D made his way down toward the excavation, aware that his appearance would likely cause shock. As he approached, workers glanced up with expressions ranging from curiosity to suspicion. "Excuse me," he addressed a nearby technician. "I'm looking for Kai Green." The technician's eyes widened, staring at Ben as if seeing a ghost. Without responding, she activated a communication device on her wrist. "Ms. Green, you need to come to the North Quadrant. Immediately." Moments later, a figure emerged from one of the excavated structures, climbing nimbly up the embankment. Kai Green of Universe Omega. 112 wore practical field clothes covered in dust, with her hair braided back from her face. Most notably, she wore a variation of the Omnitrix on her left wrist, sleeker than Ben's original model had been. With turquoise accents rather than green. She stopped abruptly upon seeing Ben, her expression cycling through shock, disbelief, and wary caution. "That's impossible," she stated flatly, hand hovering over her Omnitrix. "Who are you really?" "My name is Ben Tennyson," he replied honestly. "But not the Ben Tennyson you knew. I'm from another dimension." Kai's eyes narrowed. "Prove it." Ben activated his Omnitrix Infinitum, causing Kai to tense until she saw the unfamiliar design in the holographic display it projected. The display showed her universe in relation to the multiverse, with the approaching fracture clearly visible. "Your universe is in danger," Ben explained. "Along with every other dimension in the multiverse. I need your help to stop it." Kai studied the display with the practiced eye of someone accustomed to analyzing ancient data. "These patterns, they're similar to chronosapian temporal displacement signatures I found in ruins near Roswell." "They would be," Ben confirmed. "The threat involves manipulation of space-time on a multiversal scale." Kai circled him cautiously, studying both Ben and the Omnitrix Infinitum with equal intensity. "In my world, Ben N. Nyson died saving my life 12 years ago. I watched it happen." Her voice remained steady, but pain flickered behind her eyes. "He never got the chance to grow up, to become." She gestured at Ben. "Whatever you are now, I'm sorry," Ben said quietly. "For what it's worth, I think he would be proud of what you've done with the Omnitrix." Something in Kai's expression shifted slightly. "The multiverse theory, we found evidence of it in Contempolia artifacts last year, but I never imagined." She straightened her shoulders. "Tell me more about this threat." Ben explained about egregor, the quantum causality engine, and the spreading fracture. Kai listened intently, occasionally asking incisive questions that revealed her deep knowledge of alien technology and history. "So this egregor is using Contempolia technology to harvest multiversal energy," she summarized when he finished. "And in doing so, he's causing a cascading collapse that will eventually destroy all reality." "That's the situation," Ben confirmed. "I'm assembling a team with specific skills to stop him. Your experience with alien artifacts and your Omnitrix make you uniquely qualified to help." Kai fell silent, considering the implications. Finally, she turned to the technician who had called her. "Maya, you're in charge until I return. Continue cataloging the Petrosapian architecture according to Protocol Omega." The woman nodded. "How long will you be gone?" "I don't know," Kai answered honestly. "But this takes priority over everything." She turned back to Ben. "I'll need my field kit and the Contempolia artifacts we recovered last month." Her expression grew determined. "If egregor is misusing their technology, those artifacts might help us counter it." Ben nodded. "Thank you." Kai's mouth curved in a small, sad smile. "Ben Tennyson asking for my help to save the universe. Some things really don't change across dimensions." She activated her Omnitrix, scrolling through alien forms. "I'll get my equipment faster as XLR8. Give me 2 minutes." In a flash of turquoise light, she transformed into a Kinesolaran and disappeared in a blur of motion, returning moments later with a specialized CK pack and several carefully wrapped objects that hummed with faint energy. Reverting to human form, Kai secured the artifacts. "I'm ready." Ben transformed into Chronospan once more and created the dimensional rift. "This will take us to a place outside normal space-time called the Crucible. 2 others are already there, Professor Paradox, who you might know of, and an alternate version of Julie Y. Amamoto who specializes in alien technology. I've encountered references to Paradox in temporal artifacts," Kai confirmed. "Never met him personally. And in my world, Julie Yamamoto is a professional tennis player who occasionally consults with plumber operations." She shouldered her pack. "Let's go." They stepped through the rift together, emerging in the Crucible where Julie was already deeply engaged in analyzing the control systems while Paradox monitored the fracture's progress. "Welcome back, Benjamin," Paradox greeted them. "And Ms. Green of Universe Omega 112. Your work on the Hather excavation was quite remarkable, discovering a Chronosapian timeship intact after 50,000 years." Kai recovered quickly from the disorientation of dimensional travel. "It would have remained BU. Read if not for the Omnitrix's scanning capabilities. She approached the central platform, immediately drawn to the Contemplalia architecture. These systems, they're similar to artifacts we discovered in Egypt, but far more advanced. Julie looked up from her work, studying Kai with professional interest. You have your own Omnitrix. Is its programming architecture similar to Ben's? Some base elements are the same, but mine has been optimized for archaeological applications rather than combat, Kai explained, extending her arm to show the device. Azimuth modified it to enhance scanning resolution and data storage at the expense of some transformation capabilities. The two women quickly fell into technical discussion, comparing notes on their respective areas of expertise while examining the Crucible's systems. Ben watched with satisfaction as the beginnings of team cohesion emerged naturally through their shared interests despite their dimensional differences. They're adapting well, Paradox observed quietly, coming to stand beside Ben. Though I suspect our next recruitment may prove more challenging. Ben nodded, knowing that approaching the alternate Gwen would be complicated. According to the Crucible's data, the Gwen of Universe TAU 436 had become a powerful sorceress after a series of events that had driven her and Ben apart in that timeline. I should go immediately, Ben decided, inputting the coordinates for TAU 436. Time is running short, Paradox nodded. Indeed. While you're gone, I'll work with Ms. Yamamoto and Ms. Green to develop a preliminary strategy. Based on the data we've gathered about Egregor's stronghold. Ben transformed into Chronospan once more, but paused before creating the rift. Professor, if this goes wrong, if we can't stop the fracture. One impossible challenge at a time, Benjamin, Paradox replied gently. Focus on assembling your team. The rest will follow. With a nod, Ben created the dimensional portal and stepped rough into Universe TAU 436, and immediately knew something was wrong. The reality around him felt unstable, temporal energies fluctuating wildly. He had emerged in what should have been Gwen's magical research facility. But the building was in ruins, mystical energy barriers flickering weakly around its perimeter. Ben reverted to human form and cautiously moved through the debris, the Omnitrix INF. Initum scanning automatically for life signs. According to the Crucible's data, this universe's Gwen had established a center for magical research after studying under reformed versions of Hex and Charmcaster. But something had clearly gone very wrong. Hello, he called out, moving deeper into the damaged structure. Gwen. A surge of mana energy erupted from the floor in front of him, forming a containment bubble that trapped Ben before he could react. From the shadows emerged a figure with familiar red hair, though everything else about her was dramatically different from the Gwen he knew. This Gwen's hair was longer, with white streaks running through it. Her eyes glowed with constant mana energy, and mystical tattoos covered the visible portions of her arms. She wore ornate robes inscribed with magical symbols, and her expression was cold, calculating. Interesting, she said, studying Ben through the mana barrier. A dimensional traveler wearing Ben's face. Are you a shapeshifter, or a genuine variant from another timeline? I'm Ben Tennyson from another dimension, he answered honestly. I've come because your universe is in danger. All universes are. Gwen circled the containment field, studying him with the detached interest of a scientist observing a specimen. The dimensional barriers have been weakening for weeks. Is that your doing? No, I'm trying to stop it. Ben activated the Omnitrix Infinitum, projecting the holographic display showing the fracture. This is happening across the multiverse. A dimensional collapse that will eventually consume everything, including your reality. Gwen studied the display, her expression softening slightly with recognition. The fracture. Hex predicted something like this might occur if the Contemplalia safeguards were ever breached. She lowered the containment field, though remained wary. What caused it? Ben explained about Egregor and the quantum causality engine as he had with the others. As he spoke, Gwen's expression grew increasingly troubled. The engine's design was in Legerdemain's forbidden archives, she said when he finished. Charmcaster and I sealed those texts away years ago because of their destructive potential. Her eyes narrowed. How did Egregor access that knowledge? In his dimension, events played out differently, Ben explained. He discovered Contemplalia technology and combined IT with magical principles to create the engine. Gwen turned away, moving toward a damaged console that still functioned. You said you're assembling a team. Who else have you recruited? Alternate versions of Julie Yamamoto and Kai Green, each with specialized knowledge that could help us stop Egregor. And you came for me because your understanding of interdimensional magic could be crucial for sealing the breaches once we stop the engine. Gwen laughed, though the sound held little humor. In your dimension, are we still close? The question caught Ben off guard. Yes. Gwen is my cousin and one of my closest friends. We've saved the universe together more times than I can count. A shadow passed over Gwen's features. How nice for you. She turned back to face him fully. In this reality, Ben Tennyson and I haven't spoken in 8 years. Not since he chose to side with the plumbers against the magical community during the Archimata conflicts. Ben processed this information with shock. The Ben of your world opposed magic users. He believed technology was the only path forward for humanity. That magic was too unpredictable, too dangerous. Gwen's voice remained even, but old pain lingered beneath the surface. When the plumbers began registering and restricting magic users, Ben became their champion. He used the Omnitrix against his own kind. I would never do that, Ben said firmly. Perhaps you wouldn't, but he did. Gwen studied Ben for a long moment. However, that's irrelevant to the current crisis. If the fracture continues unchecked, none of our past conflicts will matter because there will be no future for any dimension. She waved a hand, and a portion of the damaged wall repaired itself, revealing a hidden chamber filled with magical artifacts and texts. I'll help you stop Egregor, but not for you or for Ben. For the countless innocent lives across dimensions who don't deserve oblivion. Relief washed through Ben. Thank you. Gwen began collecting specific items, ancient tomes, crystalline artifacts, and vials of swirling energy, placing them in a dimensional pocket with practiced movements. The dimensional instabilities have been affecting our reality for days. We lost contact with Legerdemain this morning when its dimensional anchor points collapsed. She paused, emotion breaking through her composed exterior for the first time. Charmcaster was there when it happened. My mentor, my friend. She straightened, composure returning. All the more reason to stop this Egregor before more damage is done. Once she had gathered her materials, she turned back to Ben. I'm ready. Though I should warn you, my magic has been somewhat unstable since the dimensional fluctuations began. I can't guarantee full control of my more powerful spells. Noted, Ben said, transforming once more into Chronospan. We're going to a place called the Crucible, a Contempolia construction that exists outside normal space-time. Gwen nodded. I've read about it in the ancient texts. A nexus point for monitoring multiversal integrity. Ben created the dimensional rift, and together they stepped through, completing the team he had set out to assemble. As they emerged in the Crucible, Julie, Kai, and Paradox looked up from their work. An instant of tension hung in the air as Gwen took in the assembled group, her eyes lingering on Kai's Omnitrix with a flicker of old pain before her expression smoothed into professional neutrality. Welcome, Ms. Tennyson, Paradox greeted her. Your expertise in interdimensional magic will be invaluable to our efforts. Professor Paradox, Gwen acknowledged with a slight inclination of her head. The text spoke of your role in maintaining temporal stability. She turned to the others. Julie Yamamoto and Kai Green, I presume. Though not the versions from my dimension. That's right, Julie confirmed, studying Gwen with obvious curiosity. I specialize in alien technology integration. And I focus on alien archaeology. Kai added, specifically Contempolia artifacts similar to this facility. Gwen nodded, her initial wariness gradually easing as professional interest took precedence. In my dimension, both of you chose different paths. It's fascinating to see these variations. Ben reverted to human form, pleased to see the team coming together despite their dimensional differences. Now that we're all here, we need to formulate a plan to reach Egregor's stronghold and disable the quantum causality engine. We've made progress on that front, Paradox said, guiding the M to the central console where a complex holographic model displayed a fortress suspended in what appeared to be the void between dimensions. This is Egregor's citadel in dimension Epsilon 417. As you can see, he's positioned it in what we might call a dimensional blind spot, a region where realities overlap without fully connecting. Julie gestured to specific points on the display. Based on the energy signatures, we've identified the engine's location within the central chamber. It's drawing power from these 5 conduits, each connected to a collapsing dimension. The design incorporates elements of both Contemplalia technology and legerdemain mysticism, Kai added, pointing to specific architectural features. These structural components resemble artifacts we discovered in Egypt that were capable of channeling dimensional energy. Gwen stepped forward, studying the model with narrowed eyes. The magical sigils etched into the conduits are from the Archimata Book of Spells, specifically spells designed to tear holes between realities. She looked up at the others. Egregor is using magic to weaken the dimensional boundaries and technology to harvest the resulting energy discharge. So we need both magical and technological solutions to shut it down, Ben concluded. A perfect reason why this team makes sense. The 4 of them spent the next hour analyzing the fortress's defenses and the engine's operations, each contributing their unique perspective and expertise. As they worked, Ben observed how naturally they fell into collaborative roles despite their dimensional differences, Julie focusing on the technological vulnerabilities, Kai identifying potential entry points based on architectural weaknesses, Gwen assessing the magical defenses, and Ben himself strategizing how his expanded transformation capabilities could counter Egregor's security measures. The fortress has 3 primary defense systems, Julie summarized, bringing their planning session to a focus. First, chrono-displacement barriers that shift sections of the citadel randomly through time, making conventional approach impossible. Second, energy shields calibrated to detect and repel specific genetic signatures, including Omnitrix energy. Third, magical wards designed to divert interdimensional travelers into pocket dimensions. Formidable, Paradox commented. Though not insurmountable with the right approach. I believe I can counter the magical wards, Gwen said, producing a crystalline artifact from her dimensional pocket. This is a Tempest Prism from Legerdemain. It can stabilize localized space-time and prevent magical displacement effects within its radius. Julie nodded thoughtfully. And I can reconfigure my exosuit to generate an anti-chronometric field that should allow us to navigate the time-shifted sections of the fortress. It won't be perfect, but it should give us enough stability to move through. That leaves the energy shields, Kai said, turning to Ben. The Omnitrix Infinitum appears to access genetic templates from across the multiverse. Could you transform into a species the shields aren't calibrated to recognize? Ben smiled, impressed by their quick problem-solving. Exactly what I was thinking. The Crucible's database shows Egregor's shields are designed to detect the energy signatures of species from approximately 50 universes, but the Omnitrix Infinitum can access thousands. Then we have our infiltration strategy, Paradox concluded. Once inside, you'll need to reach the engine's control chamber and simultaneously disable E5 conduits before shutting down the core. The conduits will be heavily guarded, Gwen warned. Egregor wouldn't leave his power source vulnerable. Which is why we'll need to split into teams, Ben decided. Julie and I can take the primary conduit and the engine core. Kai, you and Gwen handle the secondary conduits. Kai activated her Omnitrix, scrolling through the available transformations. My Omnitrix has fewer combat-oriented forms, but I still have access to gray matter and upgrade, which should help with the technical aspects. And I can provide magical support while you handle the technology, Gwen added. Her initial reluctance now replaced by focused determination. As they finalized their plan, the holographic displays suddenly flickered, distortion rippling across the images. An alarm sounded from the Crucible's systems. What's happening? Ben demanded, turning to Paradox. The time traveler's expression was grave as he studied the readings. The fracture has reached a critical expansion point. 3 more universes have collapsed simultaneously, creating what can only be described as a chain reaction effect. The displays stabilized enough to show the devastation on entire realities winking out of existence, the black fracture lines spreading more rapidly than before. How long do we have? Julie asked, already moving toward her equipment. At the current rate of acceleration, Paradox performed rapid calculations. Less than 72 hours before the damage becomes irreversible. Ben looked at each member of his hastily assembled team, strangers who were also somehow familiar. Each carrying the essence of people he knew while being uniquely themselves. Despite having just met, they had come together with a shared purpose that transcended their dimensional differences. Then we move immediately, he declared, activating the Omnitrix Infinitum. The multiverse is counting on us. As one, they gathered their equipment and moved to the central platform. Ben transformed into Chronospan, focusing his enhanced perception on the coordinates of Egregor's fortress. Once we enter Dimension Epsilon 417, we'll have limited time before Egregor detects our presence, he warned. We'll need to move quickly and stay coordinated. Julie activated her exosuit, the technology unfolding from its compact form to encase her in a sleek, articulated frame that hummed with energy. Anti-chronometric field generators online. Range is limited to approximately 20 meters, so stay close once we're inside the time-shifted zones. Kai transformed in a flash of turquoise light, taking the form of gray matter to make final adjustments to their equipment. I've synchronized our communication devices to operate across dimensional frequencies. We should be a BLE to maintain contact even if separated. Gwen began an incantation, magical energy flowing from her hands to create protective wards around each team member. These spells will shield your life for CES from detection and provide some protection against magical attacks. They won't last forever, so use them wisely. As the preparations concluded, Ben created the largest dimensional rift yet, a fully controlled tear in reality leading directly to the space outside Egregor's fortress. Through the opening, they could see the massive structure floating in the void, energy conduits pulsing with power stolen from dying universes. Remember, Ben said as the team prepared to step through, we're not just fighting for our own dimensions. We're fighting for all reality. With those words, they entered the rift together, crossing the threshold into what would become the most important battle any of them had ever faced, a battle for the very existence of the multiverse itself. Chapter 2. Convergent Destinies. The dimensional rift closed behind them with a sound like tearing silk, leaving the team suspended in a space that defied conventional physics. Egregor's fortress loomed before them, a massive structure of obsidian and alien metal hovering in the void between realities. 5 massive energy conduits extended from its central spire like grasping fingers, each drawing power from a different dying universe. Their surfaces etched with glowing sigils that pulsed in hypnotic patterns. Ben, still in Chronospan form, created a temporal bubble around the team to shield them from the Tick dimensional energies swirling throughout the void. Outside their protective sphere, fragmented realities collided and dissolved, ghostly images of worlds in the process of unraveling. That's horrifying, Julie whispered, her exosuit's sensors cataloging the dimensional decay. Each of those energy signatures represents an entire universe being consumed. Gwen's eyes glowed as she extended her magical awareness. The magical interference is stronger than I anticipated. The Tempest Prism's range will be limited to about 30 meters once we're inside. Kai, having reverted from gray matter to human form, studied the fortress through specialized lenses. The architecture incorporates elements from at least 7 different civilizations. Those spires are Petrosapian crystal, but the central dome appears to be Galvan design. She pointed to specific sections. And those nodes connecting the conduits contain Chronosapian technology. We need to move quickly, Ben said, his temporal voice echoing strangely. According to the Omnitrix Infinitum, 2 more universes have collapsed since we left the Crucible. He guided their temporal bubble toward the fortress, navigating through the dimensional turbulence with increasingly precise control of his Chronospan abilities. As they approached, the first line of defense became visible, a shimmering barrier that rippled with chronometric energy, causing sections of the fortress to phase rapidly between different temporal states. Julie, we'll need your anti-chronometric field, Ben said as they hovered just outside detection range. She nodded, activating her exosuit's specialized emitters. Blue energy pulsed outward, creating a stable temporal pocket around them. Field active, but power consumption is high. We have maybe 2 hours before reserves deplete. Ben assessed their options, the Omnitrix Infinitum scanning for vulnerabilities. There's a maintenance access point on the eastern quadrant that shows less temporal fluctuation. If we can reach it, we should be able to bypass the outer defenses. He navigated their bubble toward the indicated position, moving carefully through debris from collapsed realities, fragments of buildings, vehicles. and occasionally more disturbing remnants that none of them chose to examine closely. How are we supposed to know which universe is which? Kai asked, watching as a piece of W. had appeared to be New York City drifted past them, still burning. If we need to target specific conduits, we need to identify which dimensions they're drawing from. The conduits are color-coded, Ben explained. The Omnitrix Infinitum feeding him information. Each corresponds to a specific universe based on its vibrational frequency. Red is targeting universe Delta 779, blue is universe Gamma 112, gold is universe Sigma 643. Green is universe Epsilon 555, and purple is targeting universe Omega 998. Gwen's expression darkened. Omega 998, that's the dimensional frequency of legerdemain in my universe. That explains why we lost contact with it. Egregor is actively draining its magical energy. They reached the maintenance access point, a hexagonal port used for external repairs to the fortress's systems. As they approached, the Omnitrix Infinitum projected a holographic interface that Ben manipulated with practiced movements. I'll need to transform into something that can interface with the technology without triggering the genetic scanners, he said, cycling through alien forms until he found one that appeared entirely mechanical, with a body composed of interlocking cubes and a single glowing eye. This should work. In a flash of green light, Ben transformed into the new alien form. Tesseract, he announced, his voice now a synthesized monotone. A hypercubian from universe PHI 224. Their technology operates on principles so different from standard dimensional physics that Egregor's sensors shouldn't recognize it. The cube-like alien extended an appendage that reconfigured into an interface probe. Connecting with the access port, lines of energy flowed from Ben's body into the system, his single eye flashing with complex patterns as he bypassed the security protocols. Fascinating, Julie murmured, analyzing the process through her exosuit's sensors. His molecular structure is actually folding through higher dimensions to avoid conventional detection methods. I've got it, Ben announced after several tense moments. The port slid open, revealing a narrow maintenance shaft. This leads to a service corridor that connects to the central hub. Wheel nay, Ed to move quickly. I've created a feedback loop in the security systems, but it won't last long. He reverted to chronospan form, and the team entered the fortress one by one, Julie going first to establish the anti-chronometric field inside, followed by Kai, Gwen, and finally Ben, who sealed the port behind them. Inside, the corridor stretched before them, its walls composed of the same obsidian material as the exterior but lined with circuitry that pulsed with stolen dimensional energy. The air itself felt wrong, too dense in some places, too thin in others, as if reality couldn't quite stabilize within the structure. Gwen activated the Tempest Prism, which floated above her palm, emitting a soft blue light that pushed back against the unstable dimensional effects. The magical interference is coming from all directions. Egregor isn't just using magic to breach dimensions, he's weaponizing it. Julie consulted her exosuit's display. The primary energy core is 3 levels down, at the center of the fortress. The conduits branch out from there, each leading to a control node that regulates the flow from the targeted dimension. We should split up as planned, Ben decided. Julie and I will head for the primary core. Kai, you and Gwen take the conduits. Kai activated her Omnitrix, this time transforming into a sleek, aerodynamic alien form. Velocihazard, she explained, her voice now carrying a slight hiss. A variant of Kinesolarin with enhanced durability. Perfect for rapid movement through hazardous environments. Gwen nodded, creating a small magical construct that separated into 2 identical devices. She handed one to Julie. These are linked locator spells. If either team gets into trouble, activate it and the other will guide you to our position. The corridor ahead split into multiple pathways, each leading to different sections of the fortress. As they prepared to separate, Ben addressed the team one final time. Remember, our priority is shutting down T. He conduits before they can cause any more dimensional collapse. Only then can we deal with Egregor himself. Stay in communication and be ready to adapt. We don't know what defenses he might have beyond what we've already detected. With determined nods, the teams separated, Julie and Ben heading toward the central core while Kai and Gwen moved to intercept the conduit control nodes. As Ben and July I.e. navigated the twisting corridors of the lower levels, the temporal distortions grew more pronounced. Despite Julie's anti-chronometric field, sections of the walls occasionally shifted, revealing glimpses of the same corridor at different points in time, sometimes empty, sometimes occupied by strange mechanical sentries. Those must be Egregor's security drones, Julie whispered as they pressed themselves against a wall to avoid detection. Their design is similar to Tekadon technology but with significant modifications. Ben studied the patrol patterns, noting how the drones seemed to phase in and out of normal time flow. They're shifting between temporal states, probably to detect intruders trying to use time manipulation to sneak in. Which would be us, Julie remarked dryly. Exactly. We need to move when they're out of phase with our current temporal state. Ben consulted the Omnitrix Infinitum, which displayed the complex chronometric patterns governing the drone's movements. There's a 5-second window approaching, now. They darted across the intersection just as the drones phased out of their temporal alignment, continuing down a spiraling ramp that led deeper into the fortress. The architecture became increasingly alien as they descended, with walls that occasionally rippled like liquid despite being solid to the touch, and gravity that subtly shifted direction without warning. The dimensional instability is affecting fundamental physical constants, Julie observed, adjusting her exosuit's settings to compensate. If the engine keeps operating at this rate, it won't just destroy individual universes, it could unravel the basic laws of physics across the multiverse. All the more reason to shut it down, Ben replied grimly. They reached a massive set of doors inscribed with symbols that pulsed with malevolent energy. This must be the entrance to the central core. Julie scanned the doors with her exosuit's sensors. Heavy security protocols. I'm detecting neural recognition locks and adaptive defense mechanisms. It's not just checking identity, it's scanning thought patterns to verify intent. Then we need to be something without recognizable thoughts, Ben decided. Cycling through the Omnitrix Infinitum's catalog until he found the appropriate form. This should work. He transformed in a flash of green energy, his body dissolving into a swirling cloud of greenish particles that seemed to exist slightly out of phase with reality. Neurovoid, his voice echoed from everywhere and nowhere at once. A collective intelligence from Unev. RSE Tau 992 composed of quantum-entangled particles. No central consciousness for the scanners to detect. The particle cloud that was Ben flowed toward the neural recognition locks, seeping into the mechanisms and disrupting their scanning capabilities. After several tense moments, the massive doors slid open, revealing the engine's core chamber beyond. Impressive, Julie commented as Ben reverted to chronospan form. Is there a limit to how many different alien forms you can access with the Omnitrix Infinitum? Theoretically, no, Ben replied. It contains genetic templates from across the entire multiverse. The challenge is knowing which form is right for each situation, and maintaining control over the more exotic physiologies. They entered the core chamber, a vast spherical space dome, dominated by a massive device that could only be the quantum causality engine. It resembled a miniature galaxy suspended in the center of the room, with swirling energy in the core connected to the 5 conduits that extended outward through the fortress walls. The chamber's perimeter was lined with control stations, each monitoring different aspects of the engine's operation. There's the primary control hub, Julie whispered, pointing to an elevated platform directly beneath the engine. If we can access it, I might be able to initiate a controlled shutdown sequence. Ben nodded, scanning for security measures. I don't see any guards or drones. That seems too convenient. Because it is, came a voice from behind them. They spun to find Egregor standing at another entrance to the chamber. This version of the Osmosian was even more imposing than the one Ben remembered from his own universe. His body had been augmented with cybernetic enhancements that pulsed with stolen dimensional energy. And the absorption plugs on his shoulders and arms had evolved into more complex mechanisms capable of processing multiple energy types simultaneously. Ben Tennyson, Egregor said, his voice carrying an unnatural resonance as if speaking from multiple points in time. I wondered when the Omnitrix wielder would arrive to play hero. Though I must admit, I expected the Ben Tennyson of this dimension. Not a traveler from another reality. The Ben Tennyson of this dimension couldn't come, Ben replied, positioning himself protectively in front of Julie. Too busy being dead after you destroyed his universe. Egregor smiled, the expression devoid of warmth. A necessary sacrifice in the pursuit of ultimate power. As are all the dimensions currently feeding my engine. He gestured expansively toward the swirling device. Do you comprehend what you're witnessing? The quantum causality engine doesn't merely destroy realities, it harvests their fundamental energy and converts it into power I can absorb. With each universe that collapses, I grow stronger. And insaner, Ben retorted. No being is meant to contain that kind of power. It's tearing reality apart and it'll tear you apart too. Such limited thinking. Egregor sighed. I've evolved beyond such constraints. My enhanced physiology can process dimensional energy in ways no other being can comprehend. His eyes narrowed. But enough dialogue. Your presence threatens my ascension, and that cannot be permitted. With blinding speed, Egregor launched an attack, firing beams of dimensional energy from his palms that arced the very fabric of space they passed through. Ben barely had time to transform, selecting a new alien form in an instant. Gravishock. Ben's new form was a towering being composed of crackling, gravitational energy contained within a humanoid exoskeleton. He generated a localized gravity well that bent Egregor's energy beams away from their intended targets. Julie, get to the control hub. Ben shouted, maintaining the gravitational distortion. I'll keep him busy. Julie activated her exosuit's thrusters, launching herself toward the elevated platform while Egregor diverted his attention to Ben. A Gravitonian, Egregor observed with interest. From Universe Sigma 112, if I'm not mistaken. An admirable choice, but ultimately futile. He raised his arms, cybernetic enhancements configuring as he absorbed energy directly from the engine's nearest conduit. Power surged through Egregor's enhanced body, causing him to grow in size as he channeled the stolen dimensional energy. You cannot defeat me within my own fortress, Tennyson. Here, I control the very nature of reality. Ben manipulated gravitational forces to propel himself forward, engaging Egregor in direct combat. His Gravitonian form allowed him to generate localized points of intense gravity, attempting to pin down his opponent while Julie worked frantically at the control hub. The system architecture is incredibly complex, Julie called out, her fingers flying across holographic interfaces as her exosuit interfaced with the engine's controls. It's using an adaptive encryption that reconfigures itself every few seconds. Keep trying, Ben responded, narrowly avoiding a strike from Egregor that shattered the floor where he had stood moments before. Gwen and Kai should be reaching the conduit nodes soon. If they can disrupt the power flow, it might give us an opening. Meanwhile, in another section of the fortress, Kai and Gwen had encountered challenges of their own. The conduit control room. They'd reached contained monitoring stations for all 5 energy feeds, each protected by advanced security measures. The magical wards are becoming stronger as we get closer to the conduits, Gwen observed. Magical energy crackling around her hands as she worked to counter the defensive spells. These are advanced Archimata bindings, similar to what I studied under Hex, but perverted for destructive purposes. Kai, in her Velocihazard form, zipped between control panels, analyzing each one. The technology is integrated with the magical systems. I can't access one without dealing with the other. Gwen's eyes narrowed in concentration. Then we tackle them simultaneously. Can your Omnitrix access a form with magical affinity? Kai considered this, scrolling through her available transformations. Not directly, but there might be another approach. She selected a form and transformed in a flash of turquoise light. Cerebrain. Her new form was smaller, with an oversized cranium and 6 spindly limbs. A variant of Galvan with enhanced psychic abilities, she explained, her voice now higher-pitched but carrying a telepathic undertone. Not as technically proficient as gray matter, but capable of interfacing with systems through thought alone. Perfect, Gwen nodded, creating 5 small magical constructs that floated above her palms. I'll channel counter spells through these foci, while you establish a psychic link with the control systems. Between your mental interface and my magical disruption, we should be able to bypass the integrated defenses. They worked in tandem, Gwen chanting increasingly complex incantations while Kai extended her psychic awareness into the control systems. Gradually, the security protocols began to falter as Gwen's magic neutralized the RDS while Kai's mental probing identified the technological vulnerabilities. I'm in, Kai announced after several intense minutes. I've accessed the primary control protocols. The conduits are drawing energy from 5 specific dimensional coordinates, converting it to a form egregor can absorb. Her large eyes widened. But there's a problem. If we shut down the conduits abruptly, the backlash old accelerate the collapse of the connected universes. Gwen frowned, maintaining her spell casting while processing this information. We need a controlled shutdown sequence, then. Can you reconfigure the energy flow to create a gradual reduction? Kai's multiple limbs moved in precise patterns as she manipulated invisible interfaces. I think so. If I can establish a resonance cascade that inverts the energy polarity, yes. That might work. She established psychic connections with all 5 control systems simultaneously, her enhanced mind working through complex calculations at incredible speed. I'm implementing a shutdown protocol that should gradually reverse the energy flow, returning some of the stolen dimensional energy to its source universes. Will that be enough to save them? Gwen asked, her magic keeping the fortress's defenses at bay. For the universes not yet completely collapsed, possibly, Kai replied. But Legerdemain and Universe Sigma 643 have already passed the critical point. The best we can do is prevent further damage and hope the remaining dimensional anchors can stabilize. They worked feverishly to implement the shutdown sequence, unaware that their actions had triggered an alert in the central core chamber where Ben continued to battle egregor. The Osmosian warlord suddenly stiffened, his cybernetic enhancements flashing warning signals. The conduits. Someone is interfering with the power flow. His eyes blazed with fury as he turned toward Ben. Your companions will pay for their interference. Ben used the momentary distraction to his advantage, generating a gravity pulse that sent egregor crashing into one of the control stations. They're already succeeding, egregor. Your engine is being shut down as we speak. Impossible, egregor snarled, recovering quickly. The system is designed to. He stopped mid-sentence as alarms began blaring throughout the chamber, the engine's energy patterns fluctuating erratically. At the control hub, Julie called down to Ben. It's working. The power flow is being reversed. But it's creating massive instability in the engine's core. She frantically worked the controls. We need to implement a containment protocol before the dimensional energy ruptures completely. Egregor roared with rage, absorbing more power directly from the engine despite the fluctuations. I will not be denied my ascension. His body began to glow with dangerous levels of energy, the cybernetic components struggling to contain the power surging through him. If I cannot have the multiverse's power, then it shall collapse entirely. He directed a massive energy blast at the engine's core, attempting to destabilize it further rather than lose his power source. Ben reacted instantly, transforming into a new alien form. Chronomancer. The transformation resulted in a tall, elegant being with clock-like mechanisms visible beneath translucent skin, forearms ending in hands with finger-like gears, and a face featuring clock hand indicators instead of conventional features. Ben used his new form's temporal manipulation abilities to create a stasis field around the engine's core, temporarily containing the energy fluctuations. Julie, whatever shutdown sequence you're planning, do it now. I can't maintain this stasis field for long. Julie's exosuit interfaced directly with the primary controls, channeling her specialized knowledge of alien technology, initiating emergency containment protocols, rerouting dimensional energy through auxiliary stabilizers. As they worked desperately to prevent catastrophic failure, Kai and Gwen felt the fortress shake violently around them as the power fluctuations intensified. Something's wrong, Kai said, still in her cerebrain form. The energy pattern is becoming chaotic. Someone's interfering with our shutdown sequence. Gwen's expression hardened. Egregor. He must be trying to force the engine to overload rather than lose his power source. She made a swift decision. We need to accelerate our plan. Instead of gradual shutdown, we'll have to risk a controlled collapse. But the remaining universes will have to take their chances, Gwen finished grimly. If the engine explodes, the dimensional backlash will destroy everything anyway. With renewed determination, they modified their approach, Kai's psychic abilities working in concert with Gwen's magic to implement the new strategy. The conduits began to pulse with reversed energy flow, power being forcibly channeled away from the engine's core and back toward their source dimensions. In the core chamber, The effects were immediate. The engine's swirling energy pattern began to contract, power draining from its center as the conduits reversed their function. Egregor howled in fury, feeling his newly absorbed powers beginning to diminish. No, he raged, firing increasingly desperate attacks at Ben and Julie. I will not be denied. Not when I'm so close to godhood. Ben maintained the temporal stasis field while dodging Egregor's attacks, his chronomancer form allowing him to perceive moments before they happened and adjust accordingly. Julie, how much longer until full shutdown? The system's fighting me, she called back, her exosuit sparking as it interfaced with the alien technology. Egregor built in fail-safes to prevent exactly what we're doing. I need maybe 2 more minutes. You don't have 2 minutes, Egregor snarled, directing his attacks toward Julie's position at the control hub. Ben reacted instantly, abandoning the stasis field to intercept the attack aimed at Julie. The energy blast struck him directly, sending his chronomancer form crashing into the chamber wall with devastating force. He reverted to human form momentarily, the Omnitrix Infinitum cycling through recharge mode. Egregor seized the opportunity, leaping toward the control hub where Julie worked frantically to complete the shutdown sequence. Before he could reach her, however, a blur of turquoise energy streaked into the chamber, intercepting him midair and sending him tumbling across the floor. Kai, still in her Velocihazard form, skidded to a stop beside Julie. Keep working. Gwen and I have reversed the conduit flow, but the system is becoming unstable. Gwen entered moments later, magical energy swirling around her as she erected a barrier between Egregor and the others. Ben, are you all right? Ben struggled to his feet as the Omnitrix Infinitum completed its recharge cycle. Never better, he groaned, selecting a new transformation. Let's finish this. He transformed into a crystalline being similar to Diamondhead but with a more complex structure that refracted light in impossible patterns. Prismata. Egregor rose, his cybernetic enhancements damaged but still functional. Your resistance is futile. Even if you shut down the engine, the dimensional damage is already done. The fracture will continue to spread. Maybe, Ben conceded, his crystalline body generating complex energy patterns. But we're going to stop it from getting worse, starting with you. The team converged on Egregor from multiple directions, Ben firing concentra. Ted energy beams from his crystalline form, Kai using her Velocihazard speed to deliver rapid strikes, Gwen launching magical attacks that bypassed his technological defenses, while Julie continued working on the shutdown sequence. Egregor fought with the desperation of someone watching ultimate power slip through his fingers. He absorbed energy from his surroundings, cannibalizing his own Fortress's systems to maintain his enhanced abilities. You cannot defeat me in my domain. I have absorbed the power of 5 universes. And you couldn't handle it, Ben retorted, coordinating with Kai to flank their opponent. Look at yourself, Egregor. The energy is tearing you apart from the inside. It was true. Egregor's form had begun to flicker, sections of his body occasionally becoming transparent as the dimensional energy he had absorbed destabilized within him. His cybernetic enhancements sparked and smoked, struggling to contain the conflicting energy patterns. I need more power, Egregor gasped, turning toward the engine's core with desperate intent. Now, Julie, Ben shouted, seeing their opportunity. Shutdown sequence activated, Julie announced, initiating the final command sequence. The engine's swirling energy pattern contracted rapidly, power draining from its core as emergency containment protocols engaged. Gwen immediately cast a complex spell, creating a magical barrier around the engine to contain any dimensional backlash. Everyone brace yourselves. The energy displacement will cause temporal shockwaves. Egregor screamed in fury and desperation, lunging toward the engine in a final attempt to absorb its remaining power. Ben intercepted him, his prismata form creating a crystalline prison around the Osmosian warlord. It's over, Egregor, Ben stated firmly. The engine is shutting down. You fool, Egregor hissed, his body continuing to destabilize as the absorbed dimensional energy turned volatile within him. Without the engine to stabilize the multiversal energies, I'll become a dimensional bomb. The explosion will tear reality apart for light years in every direction, across every connected dimension. Ben realized with horror that Egregor was right. The warlord's body had become so saturated with dimensional energy that his inevitable collapse would cause catastrophic damage to the multiverse. Gwen. Ben called urgently. We need a containment spell. Something that can isolate dimensional energy. Gwen assessed the situation quickly, her magical expertise recognizing the imminent danger. I can create a pocket dimension to contain the explosion. But I'll need time to cast the spell. Time is something we don't have, Julie warned, her exosuit's sensors detecting egregor's accelerating destabilization. We have maybe 30 seconds before critical failure. Kai transformed back to human form, activating her Omnitrix again. I have an idea. Ben, do you have access to a chronosapian transformation? Yes, but standard temporal manipulation won't contain dimensional energy of this magnitude. Not alone, Kai agreed, selecting her transformation. But combined with the right partner form, she transformed in a flash of turquoise light, becoming a being composed of swirling dimensional energy contained within a humanoid shell. Riftsurfer, a dimension kinetic from universe Lambda-332. Ben understood immediately, transforming into clockwork. A chronosapian with advanced temporal manipulation abilities. Together, they approached egregor's crystalline prison, where the warlord's body continued to deteriorate, dimensional energy leaking from his form in volatile bursts. We need to create a temporal dimensional pocket, Kai explained rapidly, her Riftsurfer form generating controlled dimensional rifts. I'll establish the spatial parameters. You create a time loop to contain the explosion within its own moment. Gwen joined them, adding her magical expertise. I'll reinforce the boundaries with binding SPLs to prevent dimensional bleed-through. Julie monitored the process through her exosuit's sensors. Hurry, egregor's containment is failing. The three of them worked in perfect synchronization, Kai creating a dimensional pocket with her Riftsurfer abilities, Ben using Clockwork's temporal powers to establish a recursive time loop, and Gwen reinforcing the boundaries with powerful magical wards. As the crystalline prison began to crack, they completed the containment field just as egregor's body finally gave way to the dimensional energies he had absorbed. The explosion was both silent and deafening, a paradoxical release of energy that bent perception itself. Within the combined temporal dimensional pocket, egregor's form collapsed into pure energy, the destructive force contained within the time loop that Ben had created, preventing it from spreading beyond their carefully constructed boundaries. For a moment that seemed to stretch into infinity, reality itself held its breath. The pocket dimension collapsed inward, shrinking to a pinpoint before vanishing completely, taking egregor and the destructive energy with it. The chamber fell silent save for the diminishing hum of the engine as it completed its shutdown sequence. The 5 team members stood in exhausted triumph, the immediate threat neutralized. Did we succeed? Julie asked, her exosuit powering down to conservation mode after the intense energy expenditure. Ben reverted to human form, the Omnitrix Infinitum scanning their surroundings. The engine is offline. No more dimensional energy is being harvested. And egregor? Gwen questioned, magical energy still crackling around her fingertips. Contained within his own personal time loop pocket dimension, Ben confirmed. He'll experience his final moment for eternity. But the energy can't escape to damage our realities. Kai, having returned to human form, checked readings on her Omnitrix. The dimensional bleeding has stopped, but her expression grew somber. The damage already done remains. Several universes have been completely destroyed, others critically damaged. A heavy silence fell over the group as they contemplated the devastation wrought by egregor's ambition. Though they had prevented further destruction, countless lives and entire realities had already been lost. We need to return to the Crucible, Ben finally said, his voice resolute despite his exhaustion. The multiverse is still fractured. Stopping egregor was only the first step. Now we need to repair the damage to dimensional stability. As if in response to his words, the fortress around them began to tremble, sections of the structure phasing in and out of normal space-time as the engine's stabilizing influence faded. This entire citadel existed partially outside conventional dimensions. Gwen realized, without the engine's power, it's losing coherence with baseline reality. In other words, Julie translated, checking her exosuit's diagnostics. This place is about to collapse into the void between dimensions, and us with it if we don't leave now. Ben activated the Omnitrix Infinitum, transforming once more into Chronospan. Gather close. I'll create a dimensional rift back to the Crucible. As the team huddled together, Ben generated the rift, but immediately encountered resistance. The dimensional fabric around the fortress had become severely distorted, making clean passage difficult to establish. The dimensional coordinates are shifting, he warned, struggling to maintain the rift. Egregor's meddling has destabilized this entire region of the multiverse. Gwen stepped forward, adding her magical energies to Ben's efforts. I can help stabilize the passage. My magic can anchor the rift to specific dimensional frequencies. Kai joined them, accessing her Omnitrix's scanning capabilities. I'm detecting a stable path through the fluctuations. If we time it precisely. Together, they managed to create a viable passage. Just as the fortress began to disintegrate around them. They leapt through the dimensional rift as a unit, reality warping and stretching around them as they traversed the chaotic space between dimensions. The journey back was far more turbulent than their initial crossing. The dimensional currents pulled at them from all directions, threatening to separate them across different realities. Ben maintained his chronospan form at the center of their group, generating a temporal bubble to keep them together, while Gwen's magic created a protective barrier against the multiversal turbulence. After what seemed like an eternity of chaotic transit, they emerged into the relative stability of the Crucible, where Professor Paradox awaited them with an expression of measured relief. Well done, he greeted them as they collapsed onto the Crucible's central platform, exhausted but alive. You've successfully neutralized Egregor and halted the engine's destruction. A remarkable achievement under the circumstances. Ben reverted to human form, the Omnitrix Infinitum cycling into recharge mode after the extended dimensional navigation. We stopped Egregor, but the multiverse is still damaged. The fracture hasn't healed. Paradox nodded solemnly. Indeed, stopping the active destruction was merely the first phase of what must be done. The fracture, once initiated, develops its own momentum. A cascading breakdown of dimensional integrity that will continue until addressed directly. The holographic displays surrounding the Crucible's central platform illustrated his point, showing the fracture's continuing spread. Though now at a reduced rate, the black lightning-like cracks still extended throughout the multiversal web, threatening to eventually consume all reality. So what's the next step? Julie asked, removing her damaged exosuit and beginning repairs with tools from her pack. The Crucible was designed for more than observation, Paradox explained, guiding them to a previously unopened section of the chamber. It contains mechanisms for multiversal repair, tools the Contemelia created to address exactly this type of catastrophic damage. A new door materialized in the chamber wall, sliding open to reveal an inner sanctum dominated by a massive crystalline structure that resembled an inverted tree, its branches extending downward into an energy pool that swirled with the same green light as the Omnitrix Infinitum. The Nexus Arbor, Paradox said reverently. The central conduit through which multiversal energy flows and branches into discrete realities. It is both map and mechanism, a representation of the multiverse that can be used to influence the real thing. Ben approached the structure, feeling the Omnitrix Infinitum resonate with the energy emanating from the crystalline tree. It's connected to the Omnitrix somehow. More accurately, the Omnitrix Infinitum was designed to interface with it, Paradox corrected. Azimuth created the original Omnitrix with this contingency in mind, knowing that someday it might be needed to restore dimensional stability. Gwen studied the arbor with magical senses, her eyes glowing as she perceived the energy patterns. It's a focal point for dimensional energy, similar to ley lines in magical practice, but on a multiversal scale. Precisely, Paradox confirmed. The Nexus Arbor channels the fundamental energy that sustains the multiverse. By accessing it through the Omnitrix Infinitum, Benjamin can potentially reverse the fracture's spread and begin healing the damaged dimensional boundaries. Potentially. Kai noted the qualifier with concern. What are the risks? Paradox's expression grew serious. Substantial. The process will require channeling immense multiversal energy through a single focal point, in this case, through Ben himself. No being has attempted such a feat before, not even the Contemelia. Why not? Julie asked, looking up from her repair work. Because it would require a unique combination of attributes that has never before existed. A human wielding an evolved Omnitrix capable of accessing genetic templates from across the multiverse, who has been recognized by the Crucible as the Omni-Guardian. Paradox gestured to Ben. Until now, the implications hung heavily in the air as the team processed what Paradox was saying. Ben would need to attempt something unprecedented, becoming a conduit for multiversal energy that could potentially repair the fracture, but at unknown cost to himself. What exactly would I need to do? Ben asked after a moment of contemplation. Paradox guided him closer to the Nexus Arbor. The Omnitrix Infinitum must interface directly with the Arbor. Through it, you will perceive the entire multiverse, every damaged connection, every fractured boundary. Using the Omnitrix's unique capabilities, you can then redirect the flow of multiversal energy to repair these breaches. Sounds simple enough, Ben remarked with forced lightness. Just Beck, a multiversal repair technician on a cosmic scale. The complexity is significant, Paradox acknowledged. You will need to perceive and manipulate countless dimensional connections simultaneously. Even with the Omnitrix Infinitum's assistance, the mental strain will be enormous. Kai stepped forward. There must be another way. Something that doesn't place the entire burden on Ben. I've spent millennia searching for alternatives, Paradox replied with genuine regret. There are none that would succeed in time to prevent complete multiversal collapse. A heavy silence fell over the group as they considered the situation. The holographic displays continued to show the fracture's inexorable spread, a constant reminder of what was at stake. I'll do it, Ben decided, his voice steady despite the gravity of the moment. We didn't come this far to give up now. Not when entire universes are counting on us. Ben, Julie began, concern evident in her expression. It has to be done, he said simply. And according to Paradox, I'm the only one who can do it. Gwen studied him thoughtfully before speaking. You're not doing it alone. She turned to Paradox. The strain would be mental, processing the vast information required to repair dimensional boundaries. What if we could distribute that cognitive load? Paradox considered this theoretically possible, though it would require a direct mental link between multiple individuals, something beyond conventional technology or even most magical practices. Not beyond mine, Gwen stated confidently. In my universe, I develop techniques for shared consciousness when working with the Coven of Anodyne. I can establish a mental network between us, allowing us to share the burden of processing the multiversal information. A psychic link, Julie questioned, connecting all 5 of us. It could work, Kai affirmed, her experience with psychic alien forms lending authority to her assessment. If Ben serves as the primar, why conduit through the Omnitrix Infinitum, but we help process the information and direct the energy flow. The risk would still be significant, Paradox cautioned. You would all be exposed to multiversal energies far beyond what any being was designed to comprehend. Ben looked at each of his team members, people from different dimensions who had become allies and friends through their shared ordeal. This has to be voluntary. I won't ask any of you to risk yourselves. You didn't ask, Julie replied with a determined smile. We're offering. We started this together, Kai added. We'll finish it together. Gwen nodded in agreement. One mind might break under the strain, but 5 working in concert. Those are odds I'm willing to take. Paradox observed their resolve with something approaching pride. Very well. If you are all committed to this course of action, I will guide you through the process. He turned to Ben. The Omnitrix Infinitum must establish primary connection with the Nexus Arbor. Once that link is established, Gwen can create the psychic network to distribute the cognitive load. They moved to positions around the Nexus Arbor, forming a circle with Ben at the focal point directly before the crystalline structure. Gwen prepared the complex spell for mental linking, creating mystical sigils that hovered in the air around each team member. This will forge a temporary psychic connection between our minds, she explained as the magical energy flowed between them. You'll still maintain your individual consciousness, but we'll be able to share thoughts, perceptions, and distribute the information processing. Will we be able to see each other's memories? Julie asked, understandably concerned about mental privacy. No, Gwen assured her. The link is specific, focused on processing the multiversal data. Personal thoughts and memories remain your own unless deliberately shared. As Gwen completed the preparatory spell, Ben stepped forward to interface with the Nexus Arbor. The Omnitrix Infinitum hummed with power, projecting a beam of green energy that connected with the crystalline structure's core. Immediately, the Arbor responded, its branches illuminating with the same energy. Remember, Paradox cautioned from the perimeter, The goal is to redirect the multiversal energy to repair the fracture. Visualize the broken connections being restored. The dimensional boundaries being reinforced. Ben nodded, extending his arm as the Omnitrix Infinitum's interface expanded, holographic controls materializing around his forearm. I'm ready. We're ready, Kai corrected. The team moving into their final positions. Gwen initiated the mental link with a complex incantation, magical energy flowing from her to connect with each team member in turn. The sensation was disorienting, a sudden expansion of consciousness as 5 distinct minds became partially synchronized, each maintaining individuality while gaining access to a shared mental space. Everyone okay? Ben's voice echoed both audibly and through their linked minds. This is incredible, Julie responded, her scientific curiosity evident even through the psychic connection. Focus, Gwen reminded them. Maintaining the delicate balance of the mental network. Concentrate on the task at hand. Ben turned his attention to the Nexus Arbor, the Omnitrix Infinitum establish. In full connection with the multiversal conduit. Energy flowed from the Arbor into the device and through Ben, his consciousness expanding exponentially as he began to perceive the multiverse in its entirety. The experience was overwhelming. Billions of universes, countless dimensional connections, infinite variations of reality all perceived simultaneously. Ben's mind would have shattered under he input if not for the psychic network distributing the cognitive load among the 5 team members. Through their shared consciousness, they could all perceive the fracture, a cancerous spread of dimensional instability threatening the entire multiverse. The damage was even more extensive than they had realized, with countless realities teetering on the brink of collapse. There's so much damage, Kai's thought echoed through their linked minds. Where do we even begin? We start with the primary fracture points, Ben responded, using the Omnitrix Infinitum to highlight specific junctions where the damage was most severe. If we stabilize these nexus points first, it should slow the spread enough for us to address the secondary breaches. Working as a unified consciousness, they began the monumental task of multiversal repair. Ben served as the primary conduit, channeling energy from the Nexus Arbor through the Omnitrix Infinitum, while the others helped process the vast information and direct the energy flow to where it was most needed. Each team member contributed their unique strengths to the shared effort. Julie's technical expertise helped optimize the energy distribution, eating efficient patterns that maximized the healing effect. Kai's knowledge of dimensional archaeology provided crucial understanding of the multiversal structure and how the different realities interconnected. Gwen's magical abilities reinforced the dimensional boundaries as they were repaired, adding stability to the healing process. And Ben's experience with the Omnitrix gave him unparalleled control over the transformative energy required to mend reality itself. The process was painstaking and exhausting. Each repaired connection required precise application of energy, carefully balanced to avoid causing further damage. As they worked, they could perceive the countless inhabitants of the multiverse going about their lives, unaware of how close they had come to non-existence, and still might, if the team failed. Hours passed in what felt like both an instant and an eternity as they gradually reversed the fracture's spread. The black lightning-like cracks began to recede, dimensional stability returning to affected areas. Universes that had been on the brink of collapse stabilized, their fundamental reality reinforced by the team's efforts. It's working, Paradox observed from outside their psychic link, monitoring the holographic displays that showed the multiverse's gradual healing. The fracture is receding at an accelerating rate. Within the shared consciousness, however, the strain was becoming evident. The immense energy flowing through Ben into the network taxed them all, manifesting as increasing mental pressure that threatened to overwhelm their linked minds. We need to maintain focus, Ben urged as he felt the connection wavering. We're almost there. The energy flow is becoming unstable, Julie warned, her portion of their shared consciousness detecting fluctuations in the multiversal current. The Omnitrix Infinitum is approaching its capacity limits. And the mental link can't sustain much longer, Gwen added, her consciousness strained from maintaining the complex spell. Our minds weren't designed to process this level of information indefinitely. They had repaired perhaps 70% of the damage, but the most severe fractures remain. Including the origin point where Egregor's engine had first breached dimensional integrity. This nexus of destruction required more energy to heal than all their previous efforts combined. To concentrate our remaining strength on the origin point, Ben decided, directing their attention to the massive dimensional wound at the heart of the fracture. If we can seal that breach, the remaining damage might stabilize enough for natural multiversal healing to complete the process. But the energy requirement, Kai began, concern evident in her thought, will be enormous, Ben acknowledged. More than the Omnitrix Infinitum can safely channel. A moment of shared understanding passed through their linked minds as they realized what Ben was suggesting, channeling more energy than was safe. Potentially at great cost to themselves. There must be another way, Julie argued, her consciousness searching for alternatives. There isn't, Ben replied with certainty born from their shared perception of the multiverse. Not within the time we have. Gwen, who had been silent, suddenly projected a new idea through their link. What if we use the resonance effect? When multiple dimensions align at harmonic frequencies, they naturally reinforce each other. Dimensional harmonics, Kai's consciousness brightened with recognition. Like the ancient Contemplalia artifacts we discovered, they used resonance patterns to strengthen reality at weak points. Julie's technical understanding immediately grasped the concept. If we coordinate our efforts to create a harmonic resonance pattern instead of brute forcing the repair. We might be able to heal the breach with less direct energy expenditure, Ben finished, the Omnitrix Infinitum already reconfiguring to implement the strategy. Working with renewed purpose, they shifted their approach. Instead of channeling raw energy directly into the fracture, they began creating complex resonance patterns that encouraged dimensional self-repair. Like setting a broken bone rather than replacing it, they provided the framework for reality to heal itself. The process was delicate, requiring perfect synchronization between their linked minds. Through their shared consciousness, they established a multidimensional harmonic that gradually strengthened the weakened fabric of reality. The Omnitrix Infinitum served as both conductor and instrument, directing the subtle energies with precision that would have been impossible for any single mind to manage. Slowly, the origin point of the fracture began to heal, dimensional boundaries knitting together. Reality stabilizing as the harmonic resonance reinforced the natural order of the multiverse. The team poured their collective will into maintaining the complex pattern, pushing through exhaustion as they sensed victory within reach. As the final breach sealed, a surge of multiversal energy rippled outward from the healed nexus point, a shockwave of restoration that spread throughout the dimensions, accelerating the healing of remaining fractures and stabilizing the fabric of reality itself. The sudden release of energy overwhelmed their psychic link, the connection between their minds dissolving as consciousness returned to individual perception. They collapsed to the floor of the crucible, physically and mentally drained from their monumental effort. Paradox was the first to reach them, moving with uncharacteristic urgency to check their conditions. Remarkable, he murmured, surveying the holographic displays that now showed a stable, healing multiverse. You've actually done it. Ben struggled to sit up, the Omnitrix Infinitum cycling into recovery mode after channeling such immense energies. Is it over? Did we fix it? Not completely, Paradox replied honestly. Some universes were too damaged to fully recover. Others will bear scars for eons to come. But the catastrophic collapse has been averted. The multiverse will survive and, in time, heal itself completely. The others gradually regained consciousness, each dealing with the aftereffects of their shared mental experience differently. Julie ran diagnostics on her exosuit, which had partially melded with her nervous system during the intense energy transfer. Kai checked her Omnitrix, finding its functionality altered in subtle ways by exposure to the Nexus Arbor's power. Gwen meditated briefly, recentering her magical energies after the strain of maintaining their psychic link. What happens now? Kai asked as they gathered their strength, the immediate crisis resolved but its implications still unfolding. Paradox gestured to the holographic displays, which showed the multiverse returning to stability, though with notable changes to its structure. The dimensional landscape has been permanently altered. Some realities have merged, others have diverged along new paths. The multiverse will continue to evolve in response to what has occurred. And what about us? Julie questioned, looking at her fellow team members. We're from different dimensions. Do we just go back to our separate lives? The question hung in the air, highlighting the unexpected bonds that had formed between these dimensional variants who had faced cosmic catastrophe together. That decision remains yours, Paradox answered carefully. The Crucible recognizes Benjamin as the Omni-Guardian now, a role that transcends individual dimensions. The multiverse may be healing, but it will require monitoring and occasional intervention to maintain stability. Ben looked down at the Omnitrix Infinitum, which had integrated more thoroughly with his biology following their ordeal. You're saying I can't just go back to my old life? That I have a responsibility to the entire multiverse now? I'm afraid so, Paradox confirmed. Though how you choose to fulfill that responsibility is your decision. The Crucible can serve as a base of operations, allowing you to monitor dimensional stability and intervene when necessary. It would be a lot for one person to handle, Gwen observed, looking meaningfully at the others. Ben understood the implication immediately. You're suggesting we continue working together? Across dimensions? Why not? Kai proposed. We've proven we make an effective team. Each of us brings unique skills and perspectives. A multiversal response unit, Julie added thoughtfully. Using the Crucible as our hub, we could monitor dimensional threats and respond as needed, then return to our home realities between crises. The idea resonated with all of them, a way to fulfill T.R. new responsibilities while maintaining their individual lives and connections to their home dimensions. It would require regular coordination, Gwen noted, her initial wariness toward Ben having evolved into professional respect through their shared experience. Perhaps scheduled meetings here at the Crucible to assess potential threats. The Omnitrix Infinitum could be configured to alert all of you when dimensional anomalies reach critical thresholds, Paradox suggested, allowing for rapid response when necessary. Ben looked at each of them in turn, dimensional variants of people he knew, yet unique individuals who had become something more than allies during their shared ordeal. What do you think? Are you willing to sign on for multiversal guardian duty? Julie smiled, already making mental notes about equipment upgrades she would need. My research has always focused on bridging worlds through technology. This seems like the logical next step. The archaeological insights from working across dimensions would be invaluable, Kai added with enthusiasm. And my Omnitrix's scanning capabilities would be useful for monitoring dimensional stability. Gwen considered longest before nodding. The magical community in my dimension has suffered greatly from McGregor's actions. Helping prevent similar catastrophes would honor those we lost. She looked directly at Ben. Besides, I've learned that not all Ben Tennysons are alike. Some might actually be worth working with. Ben grinned at the backhanded compliment. I'll take that as a yes. With their decision made, they began discussing practical arrangements, communication protocols, response procedures, and how to balance their new multiversal responsibilities with their existing lives in their home dimensions. Paradox offered guidance based on his extensive temporal experience, helping them establish a framework for their unprecedented partnership. As the others engaged in detailed planning, Ben stepped away briefly to examine the Nexus Arbor, which continued to pulse with subtle energy. The Omnitrix Infinitum resonated with it, creating patterns of light that mapped the healing multiverse in miniature. Quite a burden you've accepted, Paradox commented, joining Ben at the crystalline structure. Not just me, Ben replied, watching as Julie sketched design modifications for multiversal communication devices while Kai and Gwen compared notes on dimensional mapping techniques. We're in this together now. Indeed, Paradox agreed. Though the title of Omni-Guardian falls to you alone, the responsibility is wisely shared. He studied Ben with the penetrating gaze of someone who had witnessed countless timelines. How does it feel to be the guardian of infinite realities? Ben considered the question seriously. Overwhelming. Humbling. He glanced at the Omnitrix Infinitum, which had forever changed his relationship with the multiverse. But also right, somehow. Like everything I've done since. Finding the original Omnitrix was preparing me for this. Perhaps it was, Paradox mused. The timestream has always flowed differently around you, Benjamin. Your decisions have rippled across dimensions in ways few others could achieve. Quote, their conversation was interrupted as the others called Ben back to finalize their plans. Before rejoining them, he asked Paradox one final question. Will this work? This team of dimensional variants trying to protect the multiverse. Paradox smiled enigmatically. The future is never certain, Benjamin, a fact for which we should be grateful. But in the infinite possibilities of glimpsed Those where you five stand together rank among the brightest. With that reassurance, Ben returned to his new team, the first multiversal guardians united across time. Scions by shared purpose and the bonds forged in cosmic crisis. Together, they would monitor the healing multiverse, respond to dimensional threats, and perhaps discover that the connections between realities were not so different from the connections between people. As they prepared to return to their respective dimensions, now able to travel between worlds thanks to the Omnitrix Infinitum's enhanced CED capabilities, they stood together at the center of the crucible, surrounded by holographic displays showing countless worlds continuing their existence, unaware of how close they had come to oblivion. "See you all next week, then," Ben suggested, preparing to create the dimensional portals that would return each of them home. Same interdimensional time, same interdimensional place. Julie laughed, shouldering her pack containing plans for improved cross-dimensional communication devices. "I'll bring the coffee. And I'll bring data on dimensional stability patterns," Kai added, her omnitor. Ix now synced with the Crucible's monitoring systems. "I'll research additional protective spells," Gwen offered, having reached a new understanding with this version of Ben that transcended their dimensional differences. As they departed one by one, returning to lives and responsibilities in their home dimensions, Ben remained briefly with Paradox, watching the multiverse heal through the Crucible's displays. "The fracture will leave scars," Paradox observed. "Dimensions that were once separate have touched, boundaries that were once impermeable have thinned. The multiverse has been fundamentally changed by this experience. So have we," Ben replied, thinking of the unlikely team they had formed across dimensional boundaries. "Indeed," Paradox agreed with a knowing smile. "Perhaps that is the greatest restoration of all." With those words lingering in his mind, Ben opened a final portal to his home dimension, stepping through to return to a world that remained blissfully unaware of how close it had come to non-existence, and of the new guardian who now watched over it and countless others across the vast, healing multiverse. Chapter 3. Echoes of Infinity. 6 months had passed since the team had averted multiversal collapse. What had begun as an emergency alliance forged in crisis had evolved into a coordinated network spanning dimensions, with the Crucible serving as their central hub. Each member balanced their responsibilities across realities, continuing their lives in their home dimensions while regularly convening to monitor the multiverse's healing and address emerging threats. Ben Tennyson stood at the Crucible's observation deck, watching dimensional energies flow through the repaired fabric of reality. The Omnitrix Infinitum had become an extension of himself, IT's lattice-like interface extending further up his forearm, occasionally pulsing with emerald light as it continuously monitored multiversal stability. Dimensional incursion in Sector TAU 773, the Crucible's automated system announced. Holographic displays materializing around Ben to show the disturbance. Temporal displacement detected. Ben studied the readings with practiced ease, categorizing the anomaly against the database of patterns they'd accumulated over months of monitoring. Level 3 displacement. Non-critical but worth investigating. He activated the communication system built into the Omnitrix Infinitum. Crucible to team. Anyone available for a quick dimensional check-in? The response came almost immediately as a portal opened near him, admitting Kai in her archaeological field gear. Her hair pulled back in a practical braid and her modified Omnitrix glowing with turquoise energy. "Perfect timing," she said, brushing dust from her sleeve. "I was just finishing cataloging a Petrosapian artifact cache." "What's the situation?" "Temporal displacement in TAU 773. Ben brought up the detailed readings. "Nothing catastrophic, but the pattern seems deliberate rather than natural fluctuation." Kai examined the data, her experience with dimensional archaeology allowing her to spot patterns others might miss. "These energy signatures, they're similar to Chronosapian technology, but with modifications I haven't seen before." Before they could discuss further, 2 more portals opened simultaneously. Julie stepped through the first, her exosuit now streamlined and integrated more seamlessly with her nervous system following months of refinement. The second portal admitted Gwen, her magical aura visibly stronger than when they'd first met, white streaks in her hair now complemented by intricate arcane tattoos extending up her arms. "Sorry I'm late," Julie apologized, her exosuit partially retracting as she approached the displays. "I was testing a new Mentional stabilizer when the alert came through. And I was mediating a peace treaty between the Magical High Council and the plumbers in my dimension, Gwen added, her initial hostility toward Ben long since evolved into professional respect. Turns out having multiversal credentials gives you surprising diplomatic leverage. Ben smiled, feeling the familiar warmth of seeing his team assembled. Despite their different origins and the independent lives they maintained in their home dimensions, they had developed into a cohesive unit with practiced coordination. We've got a temporal displacement situation, he explained, expanding the holographic display so all could see. Something or someone is manipulating time in dimension TAU 773. That's within the fracture's former impact zone, Julie noted. Her exosuit's sensors interfacing with the Crucible's systems to enhance the data resolution. One of the areas that experienced significant timeline compression during the collapse. GWE-N studied the magical signatures with narrowed eyes. There's arcane energy intertwined with the temporal manipulation. Someone's combining magic and technology, similar to what Egregor did, though on a smaller scale. Could it be Egregor himself? Kai asked. We contained him in a temporal pocket dimension, but given what we're dealing with. Ben shook his head. The Omnitrix Infinitum would have detected a breach in his containment field. This is someone else. Someone familiar with his techniques but applying them differently. They spent several minutes analyzing the anomaly, each contributing their specialized knowledge to build a comprehensive assessment. What had begun as awkward collaboration months ago had refined into efficient teamwork, their different perspectives combining to form insights none could achieve alone. I think we should investigate personally, Ben decided. The pattern suggests deliberate experimentation rather than malicious intent, but the combination of temporal manipulation and dimensional tampering is too dangerous to ignore. The others agreed, gathering their equipment with practiced efficiency. In the months since forming their alliance, each had enhanced their capabilities to better fulfill their multiversal responsibilities. Julie activated her exosuit's full deployment, the technology unfolding to cover her completely. I've modified THE anti-chronometric field generators to provide broader protection against temporal manipulation. We should all remain within 20 meters of me to maintain coverage. Kai transformed briefly into GR-EY matter to make final adjustments to her specialized scanning equipment before reverting to human form. My Omnitrix is calibrated to detect and record dimensional frequency variations. If someone's tampering with timeline integrity, we'll have a complete record of the changes. And I've prepared containment spells specifically designed for temporal anomalies, Gwen added, magical energy swirling around her fingertips as she completed the necessary preparations. After our experiences with Egregor, I've been researching methods to counter combined magical technological threats. Ben nodded with approval, selecting a suitable transformation from the Omnitrix Infinitum's vast catalog. We'll enter through a controlled dimensional rift. Everyone stay alert. We don't know exactly what we're walking into. He transformed into Chronospan, his temporal form now more refined after months of practice, the swirling energy patterns comprising his body showing greater stability and definition. With practiced precision, he created a dimensional portal leading to the coordinates of the disturbance. Ready? He asked, his temporal voice resonating with authority. At their affirmative responses, the team stepped through the portal together, emerging into dimension TAU 773, a world where technological development had taken dramatically different paths from their own universes. The sky above Hem was filled with massive floating structures interconnected by energy bridges, while the ground-based architecture featured organic components that grew and adapted to environmental conditions. The Y had materialized in what appeared to be an abandoned research facility, its technology centuries advanced beyond Earth standards yet clearly long disused. Dust-covered dormant consoles, and vegetati on had begun reclaiming portions of the structure through cracks in the walls. Spread out but stay within Julie's field, Ben instructed, reverting to human form while the Omnitrix Infinitum scanned their surroundings. Look for anything that might indicate temporal experimentation. They moved through the facility with practiced coordination, each focusing on their specialties. Julie analyzed the technological remnants. Kai examined architectural features for historical context, Gwen detected magical signatures, and Ben maintained overall situational awareness through the Omnitrix Infinitum's comprehensive scanning capabilities. This place was some kind of temporal research center, Julie reported, her exosuit interfacing with a partially functional console. The technology is similar to Chronosapian design but adapted for use by this dimension's native species. According to these symbols, Kai added, examining markings along the walls, this facility was abandoned approximately 100 years ago following some kind of catastrophic experiment failure. Gwen's hands glowed as she traced patterns in the air, following invisible currents of energy. The magical residue is fresh, though. Someone has been here recently, channeling significant arcane power. Ben was about to respond when the Omnitrix Infinitum pulsed with urgent energy. Movement detected. 3 signatures approaching from the eastern corridor. They positioned themselves strategically, ready to confront whatever emerged. Moments later, 3 figures entered the chamber, and the team found themselves facing familiar yet distinctly different versions of Charmcaster, Hex, and Dr. Onimo. These variants bore little resemblance to the villains they knew from their home dimensions. Charmcaster appeared older, her silver hair styled practically, her customary magical artifacts replaced with more refined tools that integrated technology and magic seamlessly. Hex lacked his skull facial tattoos, instead sporting intricate circuitry patterns embedded in his skin that glowed with combined magical and electronic energy. Dr. Onimo was perhaps the most transformed, his body partially mechanized through RNETIC enhancements that seemed to incorporate biological components from multiple species. The newcomers stopped abruptly upon seeing Ben's team, surprise evident in their expressions. Interdimensional travelers, Hex observed, his voice calmer and more measured than any version Ben had encountered. Interesting. Our work has drawn attention sooner than anticipated. We detected temporal manipulation combined with dimensional tampering, Ben explained, maintaining a non-threatening posture while staying alert. Given recent multiversal instability, that combination raises immediate concerns. Charmcaster stepped forward, studying them with analytical precision. You're responding to the fracture event. Fascinating. We theorized other dimensions might develop monitoring capabilities following the collapse, but didn't expect such a rapid response mechanism. You know about the fracture? Kai asked, surprise evident in her voice. We experienced it directly, Drive. Onimo replied, his artially mechanical voice carrying unexpected gravitas. Our dimension was among those damaged, not destroyed, but significantly destabilized. We've spent the past 6 months developing methods to repair our timeline's integrity. The tension in the chamber subtly shifted as both groups reassessed the situation, recognizing potential allies rather than adversaries. Perhaps introductions are in order, Hex suggested diplomatically. In this dimension, we comprise the Temporal Restoration Committee, appointed by the Galactic Conclave to address the damage our reality suffered during what you call the fracture event. Brief introductions followed, each team explaining their purpose while carefully omitting sensitive details until trust could be established. Ben noted how efficiently his team communicated, presenting a unified front while gathering information, a far cry from their initial awkward alliance. We've been working to repair chrono fractures in our dimension's historical timeline. Charmcaster explained once preliminaries were complete. The multiversal collapse created temporal fissures throughout our history, moments where causality itself was damaged, causing cascading timeline instabilities. We detected your arrival in this facility, Drive. Onimo added, it houses technology crucial to our restoration efforts, specifically, a chronometric recalibration array capable of stabilizing fractured timelines. Gwen studied them through magical senses, her eyes glowing subtly as she verified their claims. They're telling the truth about their intentions, she confirmed to her teammates. The magical signatures align with restorative spellwork, not destructive applications. But there's something they're not telling us, Ben noted, the Omnitrix Infinitum detecting subtle stress patterns in their biological readings. Something about their method is causing concern. Hex exchanged glances with his colleagues before nodding decisively. Perceptive. Yes, there are complications to our approach. The temporal restoration requires a focus point, a nexus of multiversal energy to anchor the fractured timelines. And you've identified such a nexus? Julie asked. We have, Charmcaster confirmed reluctantly. It's a unique dimensional convergence point resulting from the fracture itself, a place where multiple realities briefly overlapped, creating a multiversal anchor point of unprecedented stability. But accessing it presents ethical concerns. Drive. Animo continued. The Nexus manifested within a sentient being, someone who briefly existed simultaneously across multiple dimensions during the height of the fracture. Understanding dawned on Ben's face. You're talking about me, or rather, a version of me in your dimension. The Temporal Restoration Committee members nodded in confirmation. The Ben Tennyson of our dimension was at a dimensional weak point when the fracture occurred, Hex explained. For approximately 3.7 seconds, he existed across 12 different timelines simultaneously. This created a unique temporal signature that could serve as an anchor point for our restoration efforts. But using a living being as a dimensional focus point would have significant consequences for the subject, Charmcaster added, genuine concern evident in her tone. We've been searching for alternatives, which is why we reactivated this facility, hoping its chronosapian technology might provide another solution. The implications hung heavily in the air as Ben's team processed this information. Using a living being, even an alternate version of Ben, as a multiversal anchor point would likely have devastating effects on that individual. We'll help you find another way, Ben decided without hesitation. Our team has experience with multiversal restoration on a larger scale. There must be a solution that doesn't require sacrificing anyone. The relief on the committee members' faces was palpable. What followed was an intensive collaboration session, as both teams shared their knowledge and experiences. Julie and Dr. Animo compared notes on dimensional technology. Kai and Hex discussed historical timeline mapping techniques, while Gwen and Charmc Aster explored magical alternatives for timeline stabilization. Ben coordinated their efforts, the Omnitrix Infinitum providing access to data from their previous encounters with multiversal phenomena. What if we adapted the harmonic resonance technique we used to seal the primary fracture? Kai suggested after several hours of brainstorming. Instead of a living anchor point, we could create an artificial nexus using synchronized dimensional energy patterns. Theoretically possible. Drive. Animo acknowledged, his cybernetic components processing the calculations. But generating sufficient harmonic stability would require precise manipulation of energies across multiple frequency bands simultaneously. Which is exactly what the Omnitrix Infinitum was designed to do, Ben pointed out. It's already calibrated for multiversal energy manipulation following our work at the Crucible. Julie expanded on the concept, her technical expertise refining the approach. We could use the chronometric recalibration array as a focusing mechanism, channeling the harmonic patterns through precisely aligned dimensional frequencies. And I could provide magical stabilization during the process, Gwen added. Already sketching complex arcane formulas in the air, similar to how I maintained our psychic link during the fracture repair, but adapted for timeline reinforcement rather than dimensional sealing. The collaborative energy in the room intensified as both teams recognized the potential viability of this approach. Over the next several hours, they developed a comprehensive plan that combined the committee's knowledge of their dimension-specific temporal damage with Ben's team's experience in multiversal repair. The solution they devised was elegant in its complexity. They would the facility's chronometric array to identify all fractured points in the timeline, then employ the Omnitrix Infinitum to generate harmonic resonance patterns precisely calibrated to those fractures. These patterns would be channeled through a network of focal points established throughout the dimension's history, not living anchors, but specially designed temporal markers placed at key historical junctures. It will require precise coordination, Hex cautioned as they finalized the details. The temporal markers must be activated simultaneously across different historical periods to establish a stable network. Which means we'll need to split into teams, Ben concluded. Some staying here to operate the array while others travel to key points in your dimension's history to place and activate the markers. The plan called for Ben and Charmcaster to remain at the facility to coordinate the overall process, with the Omnitrix Infinitum serving as the primary energy source for the harmonic resonance. Julie and Dr. Animo would travel to the dimension's future to place markers at technological development keystones, while Gwen and Hex would target magical nexus points in the past. Kai would accompany both teams sequentially, her archaeological expertise helping identify suitable placement locations in different time periods. As they prepared for the operation, Ben pulled his team aside for a private conversation. "Everyone comfortable with this plan?" he asked, wanting to ensure consensus before proceeding. "We're involving ourselves deeply in another dimension's timeline repair, which goes beyond our usual monitoring role. If we don't help, they'll eventually resort to using their dimension's Ben as an anchor point," Julie pointed out. "I think this qualifies as preventing multiversal damage rather than merely reacting to it." "I agree," Kai added. "Besides, the knowledge we gain from this collaboration could help us better understand the long-term effects of the fracture on other damaged dimensions." Gwen nodded. "The magical techniques involved are fascinating, combining temporal manipulation with dimensional stabilization in ways I hadn't considered. This could advance our capabilities significantly." Quote, Ben smiled at their unanimous support, appreciating how far they'd come as a team. "Then let's do this." The operation began with precisely coordinated temporal jumps, sending the designated teams to their target periods in this dimension's history. Ben remained at the facility with Charmcaster, the Omnitrix Infinitum interfacing with the chronometric aura. As they established the foundation for the harmonic resonance pattern. "Your team functions well together," Charmcaster observed as they calibrated the equipment. "Especially considering you come from different dimensions." "It took time," Ben acknowledged, making minute adjustments to the Omnitrix Infinitum's output frequency. "Our first mission was pure chaos, different methods, different priorities, barely any coordination. But shared purpose is a powerful unifying force. As is shared adversity," Charmcaster added knowingly. "The committee formed under similar circumstances, former adverse Ares united by necessity when the fracture damaged our dimension. They worked in comfortable silence for a while, monitoring the progress of the other teams through temporal communication links." Julie and Dr. Onimo had successfully placed markers at 3 technological nexus points in the dimension's future, while Gwen and Hex had established magical anchors at 2 historical junctures. Kai moved between time periods, providing crucial context for optimal marker placement. "Marker placement complete at all designated coordinates," Julie's voice eventually reported through the communication system. "Ready for synchronization on your mark." "Magical anchors established and primed," Gwen confirmed. "Temporal resonance circuits active and stable." Ben exchanged a nod with Charmcaster before responding. "Initiating primary sequence. Stand by for harmonic resonance in 3, 2, 1. He activated the Omnitrix Infinitum's specialized function, channeling multiversal energy through T. He array in precisely modulated patterns. The facility hummed with power as temporal energy flowed outward, connecting with the markers placed throughout the dimension's timeline. On the monitoring displays, they could see the effect spreading across the dimension's history, fractured timelines beginning to stabilize, causality reinforcing itself as the harmonic resonance created a self-sustaining network of temporal stability. The process was beautiful in its complexity, like watching a shattered mosaic reassemble itself piece by perfect piece. "It's working," Charmcaster breathed, genuine wonder in her voice as she monitored the restoration progress. "The temporal fractures are sealing, timeline integrity is being restored across all monitored periods." The operation continued for hours, requiring constant adjustments as the dimensional fabric responded to the treatment. By the time the other teams returned to the facility, exhausted but triumphant, the restoration had reached 87% completion, with the remaining repairs proceeding automatically through the established harmonic network. The dimension should complete its self-repair within approximately 2 weeks. Drive. Onimo announced after reviewing the final data. The harmonic resonance pattern has established a self-perpetuating stability cycle that will gradually extend to all remaining fracture points. We've programmed the system to send an alert to the crucible when the process completes, Julie added, her exosuit partially retracted as she rested from the intensive operation. We can check back then to verify full restoration. The mood was celebratory as both teams gathered in the facility's main chamber, sharing experiences from their temporal missions and discussing implications for future restoration efforts in other damaged dimensions. What had begun as a potential confrontation had evolved into a productive alliance with promising possibilities for ongoing collaboration. We couldn't have achieved this without your assistance. Hex acknowledged formally, addressing Ben's team. Our dimension owes you a significant debt. No debt necessary, Ben replied. Protecting the multiverse is literally our job description now. Nevertheless, Charmcaster interjected, we've prepared something that might prove useful in your ongoing efforts. She produced a crystalline device that hummed with combined magical and technological energy. A chronometric resonance key. It contains the complete harmonic patterns we developed together, adapted for portable use. It should help you address similar tempora L fractures in other dimensions without requiring a full array installation. Julie examined the device with professional appreciation. This will significantly enhance our response capabilities for timeline destabilization events. Thank you. As the teams prepared to part ways, arrangements were made for future communication and potential collaboration on other restoration projects. The committee would focus on completing their dimension's recovery while sharing their findings with Ben's team to help identify similar patterns in other affected realities. Perhaps next time we can meet under less urgent circumstances. Drive. Onimo suggested as they finalized communication protocols. Our dimension has much to offer in terms of biomechanical integration research that might interest your technical specialist. And our magical libraries contain texts on interdimensional theory that survived the fracture, Charmcaster added, addressing Gwen. You'd be welcome to consult them once restoration is complete. With final farewells exchanged, Ben's team prepared to return to the Crucible. As Ben created the dimensional portal for their departure, he reflected on how different this mission had been from their early days, a collaborative problem-solving effort rather than an emergency response, expanding their role from crisis intervention to active healing across the multiverse. Back at the Crucible, the team gathered for their standard post-mission debriefing. What had begun as a formal procedure months ago had gradually evolved into more relaxed discussions that strengthened their our sonal connections alongside their professional collaboration. That went surprisingly well, Kai remarked as they settled into their customized stations around the Crucible's central platform. First, contact with a Dimension's indigenous restoration team could have gone much worse. It helps that they were already familiar with multiversal concepts, Julie noted, connecting the chronometric resonance key to the Crucible's systems for analysis and integration. The fracture created a shared vocabulary across affected dimensions that facilitates cooperation. And necessity remains the most effective motivator for unlikely alliances, Gwen added, thinking of her own dimension's ongoing efforts to reconcile magical and technological communities following the crisis. Their committee remained me of us in the early days, different backgrounds, united by urgent purpose. Ben nodded, appreciating their observations as he updated the Crucible's dimensional monitoring parameters to incorporate their new knowledge. We should consider establishing a more formal network with other dimensions developing similar capabilities. A multiversal early warning system would significantly enhance our effectiveness. The discussion evolved naturally into planning for future initiatives, expanding their monitoring capabilities, developing standardized restoration protocols for different types of dimensional damage, and establishing communication channels with other realities developing similar guardian functions. Hours later, as the others returned to their home dimensions for some well-deserved rest, Ben remained at the Crucible, reviewing data from their expanding catalog of interdimensional incidents. The Omnitrix Infinitum hummed softly on his arm, occasionally adjusting its configuration as it processed new information about timeline restoration techniques. Working late again, Benjamin. Professor Paradox's voice came from behind him, the time traveler appearing without fanfare as was his custom. Just updating our protocols based on today's experience, Ben replied, unsurprised by Paradox's appearance. The Time Walker's visits had become semi-regular events, though never predictable. Did you know about Dimension Tau 773's restoration efforts? I am aware of many such initiatives across the multiverse, Paradox acknowledged, examining the holographic displays with interest. Though I find your team's approach to assisting them particularly elegant. The harmonic resonance adaptation shows remarkable innovation. Ben leaned back from the console, studying Paradox with curiosity that had only grown during their months of multiversal guardianship. How many dimensions are developing similar capabilities? Teams or individuals responding to the fracture's effects? Paradox smiled enigmatically. More than you might expect, fewer than would be ideal. The multiverse has always had its guardians, Benjamin, beings who perceive beyond their dimensional boundaries and act to maintain greater stability. The fracture simply accelerated certain developments, and created new guardians where none existed before, Ben added, thinking of his own team's unlikely formation. Indeed, Paradox approached the central platform, where the holographic display showed the multiverse's ongoing recovery. The vast majority of dimensions now stabilized, though some still showed lingering effects from the fracture. Which brings me to the purpose of my visit. There's something you should see. With a gesture, he reconfigured the display to focus on a specific region of the multiverse. RSE, a cluster of dimensions exhibiting unusual energy patterns that pulsed in synchronized rhythms. What am I looking at? Ben asked, the Omnitrix Infinitum automatically scanning and analyzing the display. A dimensional resonance cascade, Paradox explained. Similar to what you established in TAU 773 today, but occurring naturally, or more precisely, spontaneously rather than through deliberate intervention. Ben studied the pattern with growing understanding. The dimensions are communicating, synchronizing their recovery. In a manner of speaking, the multiverse appears to be developing new interconnections in response to the fracture, adaptive pathways that facilitate healing across dimensional boundaries. Paradox's expression grew thoughtful. It's unprecedented in my observation, yet somehow inevitable in retrospect. Complex systems develop new resilience mechanisms following trauma. You're saying the multiverse is evolving? Ben asked, fascinated by the implications. Precisely. And your team's activities appear to be catalyzing this evolution. Paradox expanded the display to show energy patterns emanating from dimensions they had visited, creating connection points that facilitated broader healing. Each intervention you perform creates templates that other dimensions naturally emulate, accelerating the recovery process exponentially. The revelation struck Ben profoundly. Their work wasn't merely addressing individual dimensional problems, it was facilitating systemic recovery across the entire multiverse, creating patterns that spread through reality's fabric. There's more, Paradox continued, further adjusting the display to highlight specific energy signatures. The dimensional boundaries have thinned permanently in certain regions, not dangerously, but significantly. Communication and transit between compatible dimensions will become progressively easier over time. Meaning more interdimensional contact, Ben concluded, immediately grasping the implications. More teams like ours forming naturally as dimensions recognize their interconnectedness. Exactly. Paradox's expression was difficult to read, neither entirely pleased nor concerned, but watchful. The multiverse is entering a new phase of existence, Benjamin. One where dimensional isolation gives way to greater interconnection and mutual awareness. Your team stands at the vanguard of this transition, not merely responding to crisis, but helping shape what comes after. The weight of this responsibility settled on Ben's shoulders, yet without crushing him as it might have months earlier. Experience had built confidence, and shared burden had made the weight manageable. We should discuss this with the others, Ben decided after processing the information. If we're influencing multiversal evolution, we need to be even more careful about our interventions. A wise approach, Paradox agreed. Though I would suggest that tonight you rest. Multiversal guardianship is a marathon rather than a sprint. As you've been learning. With those parting words, Paradox disappeared as abruptly as he had arrived, leaving Ben with much to consider. After completing his updates to the monitoring systems, he finally created a portal back to his home dimension, stepping through into his apartment in Bellwood, one of countless Bellwoods across the multiverse, yet uniquely his own. The following day brought the team together for their weekly scheduled meeting, a practice they had established to maintain regular contact beyond emergency responses. Each arrived through their personal dimensional portals, bringing refreshments or items from their home realities as had become their custom. Julie contributed coffee from a cafe near her workshop that specialized in blends incorporating alien botanicals. Kai brought pastries from a bakery in Bellwood that existed only in her dimension, where the chef had perfected recipes combining Earth and Petrosapian culinary traditions. Gwen P. roveted a tea that shimmered with subtle magical properties, cultivated by reformed magical practitioners in her dimension's legerdemain. These small exchanges had become important rituals, tangible reminders of the diverse worlds they moved between and the personal lives they maintained alongside their multiversal responsibilities. Their meetings balanced official business with the camaraderie tea had developed naturally over months of shared experience. Today, however, The atmosphere shifted when Ben shared Paradox's revelations about the multiverse's evolution and their team's role in shaping it. The implications generated intense discussion as each processed what this meant for their ongoing mission. This explains patterns I've been observing in dimensional frequency analysis, Kai noted, pulling up research she'd been conducting independently. Recovery rates in dimensions adjacent to those we've directly assisted show accelerated healing compared to isolated regions of the multiverse. My magical monitoring has detected similar effects, Gwen confirmed. Arcane energy flows between dimensions have established new patterns following our interventions, like new ley lines for Ming between previously separated magical realms. Julie's perspective was more technically focused. If dimensional boundaries are permanently thinned, we need to establish protocols for managing increased cross-dimensional contact. Not every reality is prepared for sudden exposure to alternate versions of itself. Ben nodded, appreciating their insightful responses. Exactly. Our role may be LVing beyond crisis response to something more developmental, helping dimensions navigate increasing interdimensional awareness. Like multiversal diplomats rather than just emergency responders, Kai suggested thoughtfully. Or mentors for emerging guardian teams in other dimensions, Gwen added. Similar to how we assisted the committee in TAU 773. The discussion continued for hours, expanding their vision of their role and responsibilities in the evolving multiverse. By meeting's end, they had drafted preliminary guidelines for facilitating healthy interdimensional contact, identifying which dimensions might benefit from carefully managed exposure to multiversal concepts and which required more gradual introduction. This feels right, Ben observed as they finalized their expanded approach. Like we're growing into a role that was always waiting for us, even if we couldn't have imagined it 6 months ago. From emergency response team to multiversal development facilitators, Julie summarized with a smile. Quite the career evolution. Speaking of evolution, Kai interjected, I've been meaning to share something I discovered during archaeological research in my dimension. She activated her Omnitrix, projecting holographic images of ancient artifacts. These Contempolia relics depict a multiversal state similar to what Paradox described, dimensions with permeable bound areas allowing controlled transfer of knowledge and resources. You think this has happened before? Ben asked, studying the images with interest. The artifacts suggest cycles of multiversal isolity, on and connection spanning billions of years, Kai explained. Periods where dimensions exist in relative separation followed by eras of greater interconnection, usually following large-scale dimensional events. Which means what we're experiencing isn't unprecedented, Gwen concluded. It's part of a natural multiversal cycle that the fracture may have accelerated but didn't artificially create. This perspective brought comfort. They weren't venturing into completely uncharted territory but following patterns embedded in the multiverse's fundamental nature. Their role, while significant, was part of a greater cosmic rhythm rather than an aberrant disruption. As the meeting concluded and team members prepared to return to their home dimensions, Ben felt a sense of purpose stronger than why he'd experienced since first discovering the Omnitrix as a child. The path ahead was complex and unpredictable, but they faced it together, a team forged across dimensional boundaries, united by shared responsibility for the multiverse's well-being. In the months that followed, their work expanded in scope and sophistication. Beyond responding to dimensional emergencies, they began actively facilitating connections between compatible realities, carefully introducing multiversal awareness to dimensions ready for broader perspective, and mentoring emerging guardian teams in other realities. 1 year after the fracture event, they gathered at the Crucible for a special occasion, the formal recognition of 3 new interdimensional guardian teams they had helped establish in different regions of the multiverse. The ceremony marked a significant evolution in their mission, transforming what had begun as crisis management into a growing network of dimensional protectors. Representatives from each new team arrived through controlled dimensional portals, a group from Universe Gamma 994 specializing in technological solutions to dimensional problems, a team from Universe Omega 337 focusing on biological and ecological interdimensional threats, and guardians from Universe Sigma 112 with expertise in cultural and sociological aspects of dimensional interaction. The Crucible's central chamber had been reconfigured for the occasion, with the holographic displays showing the multiverse's substantial recovery and the new connection patterns forming between dimensions. Professor Paradox attended as a special observer, his presence lending historical weight to the proceedings. 1 year ago, we faced what appeared to be the end of everything, Ben began, addressing the assembled Guardians. The fracture threatened to unravel reality itself, consuming all dimensions in its path. Today, we celebrate not only survival but evolution, a multiverse healing stronger than before, developing new connections and resiliences. He gestured to his core team standing beside him. We didn't choose to become multiversal guardians. Circumstances thrust the responsibility upon us, bringing together individuals from different dimensions who might never otherwise have met. But what began as necessity has become purpose, a shared commitment to protecting and nurturing the multiverse through its ongoing transformation. Julie continued the address, her technical expertise informing her perspective. The dimensional boundaries will never return to their pre-fracture state. That reality is gone, replaced by something more interconnected, more aware of itself. Our role isn't to restore what was, but to guide what is becoming, helping dimensions navigate increasing contact with alternate realities. Which requires more than just our original team, Kai added, focusing on the new Guardians. Each dimension experiences the multiverse uniquely, bringing perspectives and approaches we couldn't develop alone. Your specialized knowledge and regional understanding are essential to this expanding network. Gwen completed their collective message. Today marks a transition from crisis management to sustainable stewardship, from a single team responding to emergency to a multiversal network of guardians working in concert. The challenges ahead will require all our diverse talents, all our unique perspectives. After formal recognition of each new Guardian team and presentation of specialized equipment developed to facilitate their work, the gathering evolved into a more casual exchange of knowledge and experiences. The crucible hummed with energy as Guardians from different realities shared insights, compared notes on dimensional phenomena, and established personal connections that would support their professional collaboration. Ben found himself momentarily apart from the activity, observing the interactions with satisfaction. Paradox appeared beside him, watching the gathering with similar appreciation. They're adapting well, the time traveler observed, both to their guardian roles and to the concept of multiversal citizenship. It helps having mentors who've made every possible mistake already. Ben replied with self-deprecating humor. Our first few months were pure improvisation. Yet remarkably effective improvisation, Paradox noted. You established patterns that these new teams now build upon, refining approaches that you developed through necessity. They watched as Julie demonstrated specialized dimensional monitoring technology to the technologically focused Gamma 994 team, while Kai discussed archaeological evidence of previous multiversal cycles with interested guardians from several dimensions. Nearby, Gwen led a workshop on magical techniques for dimensional stabilization. Her formerly antagonistic attitude toward sharing knowledge completely transformed. Your core team has evolved remarkably, Paradox commented. Not merely in capability but in perspective. You've become true multiversal citizens while maintaining your individual connections to your home dimensions. Balance was the key, Ben acknowledged. We nearly lost ourselves in early months, spending too much time at the crucible, responding to every dimensional hiccup, neglecting our personal lives. Learning to balance multiversal responsibility with individual existence took time. It had been a difficult lesson, one learned through exhaustion and near burnout as they tried to address every dimensional issue personally. The turning point had come 6 months earlier. Julie had collapsed from overextension while attempting to manage a dimensional crisis alone rather than disturb the others during their limited personal time. The incident had forced them to reconsider their approach, establishing more sustainable patterns and recognizing the need to expand beyond their core team. A lesson these new guardians will benefit from without having to learn it quite so painfully, Paradox observed. That's the point of mentorship, Ben replied. Sharing wisdom gained through experience so others can advance further. Their conversation was interrupted as Kai approached, excitement evident in her expression. Ben, you need to hear this. The Sigma 112 team has discovered something extraordinary in their dimensional sector. She led him to where the Sigma 112 Guardians had established a detailed holographic display showing a region of the multiverse they specialized in monitoring. At its center was a dimensional anomaly unlike any Ben had seen before, a perfect sphere of swirling energy where multiple realities appeared to converge without merging. "We call it the Nexus Confluence," explained the Sigma 112 team leader, a tall humanoid with iridescent SK. In who introduced herself as Sentinel Zara. It appeared approximately 2 months ago in a region heavily damaged by the fracture. At first we thought it might be a dimensional breach, but further analysis revealed something much more interesting. The holographic display zoomed in to show the confluence's internal structure, a self-sustaining dimensional crossroads where energy from multiple realities flowed together in harmonic patterns. "It's a naturally occurring interdimensional transit hub," Sentinel Zara continued. "Stable pathways have formed connecting 17 different dimensions through this central nexus point. Most remarkably, the connections appear to be self-regulating, allowing matter and energy transfer without dimensional degradation." The implications were immediately apparent to Ben. A natural evolution of the thinned dimensional boundaries paradox described. The multiverse isn't just healing, it's establishing new infrastructure. "Precisely," Kai agreed excitedly. And according to the Sigma 112 team's analysis, similar confluences are forming in other regions of the multiverse, creating a network of stable transit points between compatible dimensions. The discovery catalyzed intense discussion among all present Guardians, with the Crucible's systems working to incorporate this new information into their multiversal models. What emerged was a vision of the multiverse's future more interconnected than any had imagined. Not a return to pre-fracture isolation but evolution toward a new state of controlled permeability, with naturally occurring transit BS facilitating exchange between compatible realities. As the gathering continued late into what passed for night at the Crucible, Ben found himself on the observation deck with his original team members. They stood together watching the holographic representation of the evolving multiverse, the newly discovered confluences highlighted as bright nodes in the interdimensional network. "Remember we thought our job was just to stop the fracture and go home?" Julie asked, smiling at the memory of their initial narrow focus. "I was counting the hours until I could return to my archaeological expedition," Kai admitted. "The universe had other plans. I just wanted to get away from anything associated with Ben Tennyson," Gwen added wryly, her initial hostility toward Ben's dimensional count. "Our part long since replaced with friendship toward the person he actually was. Now I'm helping train multiversal guardians alongside one." Ben laughed, appreciating how far they'd come individually and collectively. "None of us could have imagined this outcome when we first met at the Crucible. Thrown together by cosmic emergency, barely able to coordinate our efforts. And now we're the multiversal experts everyone turns to for guidance," Julie observed. "Life takes unexpected turns, even across dimensions." They fell into comfortable silence, watching the swirling representation of Countl's realities flowing in increasingly harmonious patterns. The fracture scars remained visible in certain regions, but they no longer threatened systemic collapse, instead marking areas of transformity on where new connections were forming most rapidly. "What happens next?" Kai eventually asked, voicing the question they all considered as they observed the multiverse's ongoing evolution. "With the Guardian network expanding and natural confluences forming, our original mission has transformed completely. We adapt," Ben replied simply. "Just as we've been doing since the beginning. The multiverse keeps changing, and we change with it, learning, growing, finding new ways to fulfill our responsibilities while maintaining our individual lives." From emergency responders to mentors to, what? Julie wondered. Multiversal development coordinators, interdimensional diplomats, all of the above and more, probably, Gwen suggested. The boundaries between dimensions are becoming more permeable. But that creates new challenges alongside new opportunities. Cultural exchange, technological transfer, magical cross-pollination, all requiring careful guidance to prevent exploitation or damage. So our role evolves from fixing problems to facilitating healthy growth, Ben summarized thoughtfully. Helping dimensions navigate increasing contact with alternate realities while preserving what makes each unique. The concept resonated with all of them, a natural progression of the guardianship they had accepted 1 year earlier. Not a fundamental change but an evolution, much like the multiverse itself was undergoing. "I think I can live with that," Kai decided with a smile. Definitely more interesting than regular archaeological fieldwork, Julie agreed. And possibly less stressful and mediating between magical and technological communities in my dimension, Gwen added dryly. Ben looked at each of them, friends and colleagues from across dimensions who had become family through shared purpose and experience. Then were agreed. The Multiversal Guardian initiative continues, adapting to new realities as they emerge. Though perhaps with slightly more reasonable hours, Julie S. Augusted with a meaningful glance at Ben, who had been notorious for working through multiple dimensional cycles during the early months. And regular actual vacations, Kai added firmly. And continue. Ed personal development alongside our Guardian responsibilities, Gwen concluded. Ben raised his hands in mock surrender. All excellent amendments to the motion. The balanced approach to multiversal guardianship continues. Their laughter echoed through the Crucible's observation deck, a moment of genuine camaraderie amid cosmic responsibility. Below them, the holographic multiverse continued its dance of healing and evolution. Countless realities flowing in patterns more interconnected than ever before. Later, as the gathering concluded and the new Guardian teams returned to their home dimensions with equipment, knowledge, and formal recognition of their roles, Ben found himself alone at the Crucible's central platform. The Omnitrix Infinitum hummed softly on his arm, its lattice pattern now extending halfway to his elbow as its integration with his biology continued to evolve. He activated the main display, calling up a comprehensive view of the multiverse as it currently existed, so different from the fractured, dying reality they had faced 1 year earlier. Where black lightning-like cracks had once spread destruction, new connection patterns now flowed with harmonious energy. Dimensions that had been isolated now participated in carefully managed exchange through natural confluences and Guardian-facilitated contact. The multiverse was healing, evolving, becoming something new yet fundamentally preserved. And he had helped shape that transformation, not alone but as part of a team that transcended dimensional boundaries. Ben created a portal back to his home dimension, pausing before stepping through. 1 year ago, he had been thrown into a cosmic crisis beyond anything he had previously faced, forced to recruit dimensional variants of people he knew to prevent multiversal collapse. Today, he stood as part of an expanding network of Guardians helping guide reality's evolution towards something more resilient, more connected, more aware of its own infinite diversity. The future remained unpredictable. New challenges would inevitably emerge as the multiverse continued its transformation. But they would face those challenges together, adapting their approach as reality itself adapted. Learning and growing through whatever came next. With that thought providing quiet satisfaction, Ben Tennyson, hero of his home dimension, omni-guardian of the multiverse and men, tore to a growing network of interdimensional protectors, stepped through the portal toward home, certain that whatever tomorrow brought across infinite realities, they would be ready. Blank. Blank. Underscore. Blank. The end. Thank you for watching this video. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video.